Chapter 1103. 2 fighter jets fell to prevent more fighter jets from attacking. Tang Zheng lowered his altitude and flew at a low altitude. He quickly swept across the sea and landed on land. As for the chaos on the island, he did not care. Let them make wild guesses. He was no stranger to the island nation. His trip to the east this time was to lure the snake out of its hole. Once the 100 Faces Star-Lord knew that he was stirring up trouble in the island nation, he would definitely not be able to continue hiding. After all, the island nation was his base camp. If the island nation was completely destroyed, it would not be good for the 100 Faces Star-Lord. His target was very clear. He was going for the Emperor. Only the Emperor could affect the 100 Faces Star-Lord. As for what he told Mu Hongyang that he would not face the 100 Faces Star-Lord head-on, it was not true. The island nation was not far from Huaxia. Once the 100 Faces Star-Lord received the news, he might come to help. Then, the two sides would definitely meet. The 100 Faces Star-Lord was stronger than him, but Tang Zheng was not a dead end. The last time the Shura escaped from his control, it gave him an idea. The Shura was a huge unstable factor, but this was for others. He could rely on the Ksitagarbha Sutra to suppress him. So, once he was really in a life-and-death situation, he could completely release the Shura. This was the island nation, not Huaxia. He did not need to worry about causing too much damage or influence. He went to the Kokyo with ease. There were many palaces. The destroyed palaces had been rebuilt, and they were even more magnificent. He used his illusion technique and easily deceived the eyes of the layers of guards. Now, the security of the imperial palace was even tighter, as if it was an iron bucket. But to Tang Zheng, it was as if he had entered a no-man's land. He strolled leisurely, as if he was strolling in his own backyard. He walked past the palaces one by one, looking for the Emperor. Suddenly, his gaze turned cold. He saw that the palace in the deepest part of the Kokyo was very heavily guarded. It was obviously not on the same level as the other places. His eyes lit up. This must be the Emperor's residence. A gust of wind blew past. The guards looked around but didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Then, they stood in place like javelins, completely unaware that a person had sneaked into the palace. In the main hall, there was a person sitting in the main hall. The others stood below and respectfully reported to him. Looking at the people in the hall from afar, Tang Zheng narrowed his eyes slightly. The Emperor was not an outsider, but an acquaintance. The original Emperor was already dead, and the new Emperor was the younger brother of the old Emperor. His name was Hirohito. Back then, he had met Tang Zheng in the northeast sinkhole. He was the leader of the ninjas. Hirohito had fallen into the hands of the government. They interrogated him for a long time, but they couldn't pry open his mouth. In the end, they exchanged benefits with the island nation and released Hirohito back to his country. After Hirohito came to power, there was a drastic change in the policy towards China. The relationship between the two countries fell into deep water and fell to the freezing point. The hostility between the two countries intensified. However, the island nation could not compete with Huaxia in terms of military power or national strength. No matter how angry they were, they could only hold it in. Looking at Hirohito from afar, Tang Zheng felt that his aura had undergone an earth-shattering change compared to before. Back then, he was already a martial scholar, and now it seemed that he had broken through to the martial king realm. Without a doubt, this rapid improvement was the work of the 100 Faces Star-Lord. The Emperor had the cultivation of the martial king realm, so his authority was naturally great. Ordinary people did not dare to resist him. His strength had completely surpassed the Emperor's. In such a small country, the general public was almost obedient to his orders. Although it had only been a short time, he had already eliminated dissidents and integrated his strength. Those who followed him would prosper, and those who opposed him would die. Hirohito's only wish was to fulfill the long-cherished wish of his ancestors. With an army pressing down on the border, he would invade Huaxia again and occupy that vast land. The officials respectfully listened to his teachings. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They could only keep talking and bowing their heads. Seeing this scene, Tang Zheng frowned. He had a whole new level of respect for Hirohito. He had thought that Hirohito was just a martial artist. He didn't expect him to be able to govern the country so well. This was a huge threat. If he wasn't eliminated, then he would definitely be a huge threat to Huashiya in the future. As for the huge impact of assassinating the emperor, he didn't care at all. It wasn't like he had never done such a thing before. The first time was unfamiliar, the second time was familiar. Step by step, he walked towards Hirohito. The officials and guards did not notice him at all. He arrived in front of Hirohito as if he was in an uninhabited land, only 3 meters away from him. Suddenly, Hirohito turned his head and stared in the direction of Tang Zheng. His eyes emitted a terrifying light as he roared, "Who is it?" Like a clap of thunder, this loud roar woke everyone up. The surrounding guards rushed over like tigers, leopards, and wolves. Although they couldn't see anything, Hirohito's gaze had already pointed in the direction. These guards were well trained and didn't slack off because they couldn't see anyone. They were all ninjas and understood that it wasn't impossible to be invisible. After all, there was such a method in ninjutsu. However, this person was invisible in front of everyone and escaped from almost everyone's sight. This ability was really extraordinary. The person had arrived, but the hidden weapons had already arrived. Swish, 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 after a series of air-breaking sounds, the hidden weapons flew towards the place where Tang Zheng was standing from all directions. Clang, clang, clang. Sparks flew in all directions and the sound of metal colliding rang out. Everyone began to shout, there was actually someone here. Assassin! Someone loudly shouted. The guards outside the palace couldn't wait to break through the door and attack. Tang Zheng couldn't understand the island nation's language, but this didn't hinder his actions. With a thought, he removed the illusion and exposed himself to everyone's eyes. "It's you!" Hirohito roared in surprise. His eyes were as big as a cow's as he stared at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's lips curled up and said, "It's me. Long time no see. I handed you over to the government and in the end I actually let you return to your country. This is my mistake. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have let you live." Hirohito could speak Huashiya language, so he understood Tang Zheng's meaning. He couldn't help but fly into a rage. He suddenly slapped the throne and shouted himself hoarse, "You caused such a big trouble in the island nation and you still dare to come here. This time you will definitely not be able to return. Do you have the ability?" Tang Zheng jokingly asked. Hirohito's strength had greatly increased and he had reached the martial king realm. His confidence had greatly increased and he almost believed that besides the 100 Change Star Lord, he was the king of the heavens. So when he saw Tang Zheng, he wasn't afraid. Instead, he became restless and decided to kill Tang Zheng in the main hall. "Mitch, this is my Kokyo. Everyone here is my people. You won't be able to escape even if you have wings. Do you think you still have a chance to live?" Hirohito loudly reprimanded. Tang Zheng shrugged and said, "All right, since you're so confident, I'll let you experience what it means to be full of ambition and show that you're skinny." Tang Zheng's eyes turned cold. His killing intent surged as he strolled towards the numerous guards. "Barker, kill him!" Hirohito roared. The bodyguards roared and brandished their katanas. They surged toward Tang Zheng like a tide. It was as if a monstrous wave was crashing toward Tang Zheng. Heaven flying immortal, Tang Zheng let out a low roar. The battle soul transformed into a dazzling sword light and flew into the crowd. In an instant, the roaring stopped abruptly, as if someone had grabbed their throats. Blood splattered everywhere, and the sound of people falling to the ground rose and fell one after another. In the blink of an eye, a large number of guards fell to the ground. Blood flowed and dyed the ground red. Blood flowed like a river. Tang Zheng's eyes were filled with killing intent. He did not show any mercy. He controlled his sword to kill, as if he was a god of death. When the others saw this scene, they were stunned. Some of the officials were so scared that they peed their pants and sat on the ground. Their entire bodies were sore and weak. They could no longer get up. Their cheeks were as white as a sheet of paper. Hirohito subconsciously grabbed onto his throne, his eyelids twitching. It seemed to be different from what he had imagined. Moreover, it was extremely different. However, he did not plan to admit defeat. He suddenly stood up, his hair and beard fluttering. He was not angry, but his clothes moved without the wind. With a flash of his feet, he tried to attack Tang Zheng. However, a few officials who still had a trace of strength hurriedly hugged him and begged, "Your Majesty, please leave quickly. This person is too strong. If he kills all the guards, then he will deal with you. Do you think I'm afraid of him? I want to fight with him for 300 rounds and let him know how powerful I am. I want him to be a ghost under my blade," Hirohito said solemnly. The officials were in tears and snot. Their hearts were about to jump out of their throats as they continued to plead, "No, Your Majesty, this person is too powerful. We just received news that 2 of our fighter jets were shot down by one person in the air. I'm afraid it was done by him. He is no longer human. He can fly. Flying in the air." Hirohito was shocked. He had seen the 100 Faces Star-Lord use this magical technique. At that time, he was shocked. However, he did not expect that Tang Zheng would also know this technique. Therefore, he subconsciously stopped and looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief. The officials did not know what flying in the air was, but they desperately hugged him. Hirohito's expression kept changing. He watched as the guards became fewer and fewer. If he delayed any longer, then Tang Zheng might really have the strength to deal with him. Tang Zheng even knew how to fly in the air, then he might not be his opponent. Thinking about this, he was angry and helpless. Back then, he was not a match for Tang Zheng in the sky pit. Now, in his own palace, he actually had to flee. This was simply a great humiliation. There was probably no other emperor who was as sullen as him. However, when he thought of the previous emperor who died, his heart turned cold. He quickly calmed down. He was not an idiot and would not really do something that would lead to his own death. Since he knew that he was not a match for him, then the best plan was to escape. It was more important to protect his life first. "All right, then I'll go first. You guys stay behind. You must delay him." After the emperor finished speaking, he rushed out of the side door without looking back. He ran away so fast that only an afterimage was left behind. The officials stared blankly at his back. This change was too fast. Why didn't he bring them along to escape? Chapter 1104. Tang Zheng suddenly turned his head and discovered that the heavenly Emperor Hirohito had already left. His eyelids twitched, and he snorted, "You want to escape just like that?" He had originally thought that since the other party was the heavenly Emperor, he would still have some courage to fight back. He never thought that he would be so timid, not even having the courage to fight, and had already fled in panic. "These eyesores still want to continue pestering me? Go to hell." Tang Zheng's eyes burst out with a terrifying light. It was breathtaking. The war soul sword flew out one after another of dazzling sword flowers, scattering into the crowd. Puff puff puff, a series of sharp sounds of swords slicing through skin rang out one after another, as if they were playing a beautiful tune. However, this was a tune that could take one's life. The guards in front of him were swept away. Tang Zheng swaggered through the crowd and chased out of the palace. Outside the palace was a huge plaza with a wide field of vision. Tang Zheng immediately locked onto Hirohito, who had already escaped far away, and with a leap, he was about to chase after him. On the contrary, countless people rushed out from all directions of the plaza and swarmed towards Tang Zheng. They were like ants, densely packed, causing one's hair to stand on end. However, Tang Zheng was not an elephant. No matter how many ants there were, they would not be able to nibble at him, because he did not give them a chance. War Soul Sword. Tang Zheng bellowed. The War Soul Sword flew into the air, riding on the sword, directly flying over the crowd. The ant-like guards stared blankly at this scene, their eyes filled with shock and despair. What was the use of having more people on their side? There was no place for them to use their skills. "Hirohito, where do you think you're going?" Hearing this voice, Hirohito was so scared that his liver and gallbladder trembled. He subconsciously turned his head and saw that Tang Zheng was only a few meters away from him. He sighed in his heart, knowing that there was nowhere to run. With a tap of his foot, the blue stone tiles on the ground shattered. He stopped in his tracks and abruptly turned around. Without saying a word, a string of cold light flew out from his hand and shot towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. The attack this time was not as soft as the other guards. It was as if they had not eaten. Hirohito was a martial king. If he was not careful, he would be at a disadvantage. He hurriedly brought out his holy armor shield. Dang, dang, dang. Those cold lights were like tickles to him, not leaving a single mark on his holy armor shield. Tang Zheng looked down at Hirohito mockingly and said, "What other tricks do you have? Use them all." Hirohito gritted his teeth. His eyes looked like they were about to spit fire. He roared, "Barker, I'm going to tear you into pieces." "Really? Since you have this kind of determination, it is impolite not to reciprocate. I promise you, I will also tear your corpse into 10,000 pieces. You should be the first heavenly emperor to die like this, and your name will go down in history. You should be happy," Tang Zheng said sarcastically without holding back. Hirohito was like an active volcano. With a glare, he completely erupted. He opened his mouth wide and let out a roar that seemed to come from the abyss. "Kill!" Tang Zheng's expression was cold as ice. He stepped on the air and descended from the sky. His battle spirit quickly slashed out. The overflowing sword chi caused the ground to crack like a spiderweb. Hirohito was at the center of the sword chi. He felt as if his entire body was enveloped by the sword chi. It was as if he was being cut by 1,000 blades. He hurriedly circulated his energy to resist the pain. At the same time, a cold light flashed in his hand, and a katana, which seemed to have been taken out of a 10,000-year-old glacier, appeared in his hand. This cold air was the murderous aura condensed from killing countless people. Whoosh! With a slash of the blade, a hole was cut open in the sword chi. Hirohito charged forward, his beard and hair fluttering. He was incomparably berserk, and with a hysterical roar, he closed the distance between him and Tang Zheng. Clang! The sword and saber clashed, and the shockwave spread out in all directions. The guards who had gathered were thrown off their horses and screamed miserably. Many of them died in the shockwave. In the battle between the martial king and the Yuanying realm, ordinary warriors and cultivators could not interfere at all. If they insisted on getting involved, they would instead become sacrificial lambs. This group of guards had become sacrificial lambs. However, the aftermath of this confrontation was not over. When the shockwave produced by the collision of the sword and saber spread out, everyone saw a scene. Countless skeletons accompanied the shockwave and surged in all directions like a tide. Skeleton. Tang Zheng's gaze turned cold, and he was slightly surprised. If it was an ordinary person, they would have been scared witless by this scene. In a battle between experts, a moment of absent-mindedness was enough to be fatal. However, Tang Zheng had seen the resurrection of the giant's bones in the prehistoric heavenly tomb, and he had also been to the ghost realm. How could he be frightened by this scene? The heavenly emperor Hirohito did not know about this, and thought that his attack had worked. His figure flashed, and like a blade cutting through water, the katana slashed towards Tang Zheng's neck. The cold aura of the blade caused people to tremble. However, Tang Zheng did not feel much, the corner of his eyes slightly raised, his wrist slightly shook, and the war soul sword rose from the bottom. Puff! A long line of blood spurted out from his chest and abdomen. The muscles on his face were almost twisted together as he bared his teeth, like a ferocious ghost with a green face. "You! How is this possible?" Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that Tang Zheng would not be affected at all. His katana was an ancient blade, one that was even more ancient than the demon blade Muramasa. It was the masterpiece of an ancient refining master, and after that, it was passed down for thousands of years, the most famous of which was in the hands of a famous tyrant. He soaked this blade in blood every day, and used it to cut off hundreds and thousands of heads, gathering hundreds and thousands of vengeful spirits. One could imagine how evil it was. Finally, when using this blade to attack, it could cause the enemy to hallucinate, greatly increasing the effect of the attack. It was an absolute weapon that could kill in one strike. Hirohito had also experimented many times, and was very clear about this effect, so he chose it as his own blade. It was a pity that this tried and tested weapon did not have much effect on Tang Zheng. On the contrary, Tang Zheng took advantage of the situation and counterattacked, almost cutting open Hirohito's stomach. It was only a hair's breadth away. Hirohito secretly thought that he was lucky, but he was also scared and broke out in a cold sweat. He did not know that this was Tang Zheng deliberately showing mercy, because he did not want to kill Hirohito immediately. Hirohito was just a bait, and could be easily killed at any time. Capturing him and using him to lure the snake out of its hole, the key was to catch the big fish, 100 Transformation Star-Lord. Hirohito clenched his teeth and quickly retreated, trying to avoid Tang Zheng's second round of attacks. But Tang Zheng did not let him do as he wished. With a wave of his long sword, the skeleton phantom disappeared, and his big hand reached out, directly grabbing Hirohito's neck. Escape! Hirohito roared, and unexpectedly used the escape technique of ninjutsu. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with a trace of ridicule. He was no stranger to ninjutsu, and said, "Playing this kind of little trick in front of me, you are really showing off in front of an expert. Show yourself." With a roar, the War Soul sword slashed towards the void, causing the air to tremble, and a figure appeared. Hirohito was in a sorry state as he looked at Tang Zheng in shock. He did not expect that his country's ninjutsu, which had been passed down for so many years, would not be of any use. "Come here." With a thought, Tang Zheng used the swallowing the sky technique. A small black hole appeared in his palm, and a huge suction force immediately locked onto Hirohito. Hirohito was shocked. "What are you doing?" Compared to the last time he fought with Tang Zheng, this time he was in a very sorry state. He did not even have the strength to fight back. How did the other party cultivate? He originally thought that with the help of 100 Transformation Star-Lord, his cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds, and could be said to have reached the limit. But after experiencing this battle, he realized that he was a frog at the bottom of a well. Hirohito was completely afraid. "Obediently surrender. Even if you flip the sky, you won't be able to escape from my 5-finger mountain," Tang Zheng said in disdain. His 5 fingers closed together, and the suction force of the black hole increased greatly. With a su sound, Hirohito was sucked into Tang Zheng's hand, and his neck was immediately grabbed by Tang Zheng's big hand. The other guards looked at each other as if they had seen a ghost. They shouted, but they were afraid of breaking the vases. They did not dare to make any excessive movements. Tang Zheng was like a little chick, swaggering out of the palace. The guards chased closely, but they did not dare to act rashly. They could only watch as the emperor was taken away. After passing through many palaces and walls, they came to the outermost area of the imperial palace. If they walked out, it would be a vast world, which would attract the attention of the people. At that time, when the people saw that the emperor had become a captive, it would cause a huge uproar. One could imagine the impact on the people. The emperor of a country became a captive. The confidence and dignity of the people would be severely damaged. Tang Zheng knew that the death of the emperor last time was no less than a nuclear explosion to the island nation. However, after Hirohito came to power, the island nation regained its vitality and gathered together. This wolf of wealth quietly lurked on the shores of Huashia. Once it accumulated enough power, this wolf of wealth would open its mouth, bare its fangs, and take a bite of Huashia. How could Tang Zheng give him this opportunity? So, he took advantage of this opportunity to cut off the Gordian knot and directly cut off their thoughts. He wanted to see if this heavy blow could completely destroy this nation, so that they would not dare to covet Huashia for the time being. "Barker, stop!" Hirohito realized something and shouted in shock, trying to stop Tang Zheng. However, he was on the chopping block. What could he do to stop Tang Zheng? "Quickly stop him. Don't let him leave the Kokyo," Hirohito ordered hoarsely. The guards looked at each other and were about to move, trying to stop Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's lips curled. He placed Hirohito in front of him and said, "Come. If you want him to die faster, I don't mind dragging a dead dog to see your people." "Hirohito, do you want to see your people alive or see them in death?" A single sentence was enough to stump Hirohito. Without a doubt, he did not want to die. He did not want to be dragged out of the Kokyo like a dead dog. He did not doubt Tang Zheng's words at all. If he said it, then he would do it. Moreover, where there is life, there is hope. As long as he did not die, then there was a chance to make a comeback. If he died, then all the chances would be gone. Hirohito was silent. Tang Zheng smiled. It seems like you are a smart person. After saying this, he kicked the heavy door. With a rumble, the door collapsed. The people outside the kokyo were immediately attracted and turned their heads to look. Two people stood in the dust. One was like a god of war, standing proudly and insufferably arrogant. The other was like a stray dog, battered and exhausted, struggling for his life. Chapter 1105. The citizens stared at the scene with their mouths agape. The kokyo was the symbol of the island nation. For such an unbelievable scene to happen, people couldn't help but think of the disaster the kokyo had suffered last time. It hadn't been long. Was it going to repeat the same mistake again? Everyone's heartstrings trembled, and they couldn't calm down. However, their attention quickly shifted from the collapsed door to the two people. For the citizens of the island nation, Tang Zheng was a new face, but the other person was very familiar to them. In the past few months, he could be seen on TV almost every once in a while. His large posters and photos were spread all over the streets and alleys, and thousands of families. He repeatedly made impassioned speeches on TV, encouraging the citizens to gradually come out of the shadows, and vowed that he would definitely take revenge. This move pulled the people out of the swamp in time, allowing the people to find confidence again and sowing the seeds of hatred. In the future, as long as he waved his arm, the citizens would eagerly jump up, just like a few decades ago, and become his vanguard army to sweep everything. However, all of this was just Hirohito's beautiful wish. Tang Zheng's sudden action caused all of his hopes to vanish into thin air. When he saw the surprised and horrified eyes of the citizens, Hirohito was ashamed. His cheeks were red, and he couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. But he fell into the hands of Tang Zheng, and there was no way to find a hole to hide in. He could only lower his head dejectedly, like a defeated general. "Sky, Emperor!" someone exclaimed, recognizing Hirohito. Hirohito heard the voice and lowered his head even more, as if he wanted to bury his head in his knees. The discussion became louder and louder like a tide, and there was a hubbub of voices. Although Tang Zheng didn't understand, he could see some clues from these people's expressions. He guessed that they must have recognized Hirohito. Looking at Hirohito's ashamed look, he deliberately raised him a little and asked, "Are you afraid?" Hirohito turned his head and begged, "Tang Zheng, please let me go. I will satisfy all your conditions." Tang Zheng said with a mocking smile, "Hehe, didn't you want to tear me into pieces?" "No, I won't," Hirohito hurriedly denied. "Haha, it's too late. Don't think I don't know about your ambitions. You're in cahoots with the 100 Faces Star-Lord. You actually want to touch my company. Do you know that?" Tang Zheng scolded angrily. "No, you're mistaken. This isn't my idea. It's my idea. It's my idea. He's the one who wants your new medicine." Hirohito denied. "Ha ha ha." Tang Zheng laughed loudly. "You underestimate the 100 Change Star Sovereign too much. With his personality, why would he care about such worldly things?" Hirohito's expression suddenly changed, not knowing how to refute. Tang Zheng sneered and said, "I'm not wrong, right? How could the 100 Change Star Sovereign be after such a small thing? You're the one who manipulated this matter, right?" Hirohito was speechless because Tang Zheng's judgment was right. Island Nation had many spies in Huashia, and they had bribed many important officials. When the King of Medicine's new medicine approval report and procedures were submitted, it attracted the Island Nation's attention. This was because the medicinal properties of this new medicine were too strong. It could actually cure many chronic diseases. It was simply a divine medicine. Many people in Huashia scoffed, thinking that the King of Medicine was old and muddle-headed. He actually made such an international joke. Even foreign countries couldn't create such a divine medicine, so what ability did the country have to create it? Many people in Huashia didn't have any other ability, but their ability to belittle themselves and look down on their fellow countrymen was absolutely first class. Therefore, many people deliberately blocked the approval of the new medicine. However, This news was passed to the island nation. Hirohito immediately organized professionals to verify it. In the end, they believed that the king of medicine was cautious by nature, and it was impossible for him to make such a low-level mistake in his old age. It was most likely true. After coming to this conclusion, Hirohito issued a death order to obtain the prescription of the new medicine, as well as related research and experimental data at all costs. This divine medicine must be controlled by the island nation. In the future, they would definitely have a greater say in the world forest, a stronger position, and more resources and benefits. Of course, this was a secret operation. The real purpose was hidden under a coat. Only a few people knew the truth, and even Shia officials didn't know the inside story. That coat was the best cover, because Hirohito announced to the outside world that he was taking revenge on Tang Zheng. After all, Tang Zheng had brought too much harm to the island nation. Shia officials didn't suspect any other reason at all. Instead, they were happy to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. After all, Tang Zheng was already out of control and wasn't bound by the authorities. It was better to let the island nation teach him a lesson. Naturally, Shia also had benefits for letting the island nation do as they pleased. On human rights and some sensitive issues, the island nation made some verbal promises. This made Shia feel that sacrificing Tang Zheng's interests in exchange for these was a very worthwhile trade. If you have nothing to say, then raise your head and let your citizens see your face clearly. Take a good look at them. This is the last time you'll see them. Tang Zheng said with a smile. What are you doing? Are you really going to kill me? Hirohito was so scared that his whole body trembled and he asked with a pale face. Is there even a need to discuss this question? Tang Zheng snorted and sneered. No. Hirohito shook his head like a rattledrum. You can't kill me. Even if I did this, I wouldn't have been able to do it without the cooperation of others. Tang Zheng gradually frowned. Do you have an accomplice? Who is it? You're very familiar with him. He's your chief. What, it's him? Tang Zheng turned pale with fright and stared at Hirohito. His eyes were open, and it was obvious that he wasn't lying about this matter. Tang Zheng was shocked. The chief would deal with him, this was without a doubt. However, he didn't expect that the chief would use the island nation to deal with him. This method wasn't honorable, and it was even a little despicable. He knew what kind of trash the island nation was, but he was still willing to cooperate with the enemy country. This was probably the face of a politician. He gradually calmed down after his anger. So what if this was? For a politician, there were too many despicable things that they could do, not to mention this small matter. The chief had a high position in Shia, and he had challenged his authority time and time again. He probably already had a grudge in his heart. Now that there was an opportunity, he definitely wouldn't let it go. Tang Zheng shook his head and laughed instead. Hirohito looked at him in surprise and asked, Aren't you angry? Why are you laughing? Did I not express the meaning behind it clearly? Tang Zheng looked at him indifferently and said, You expressed it very clearly. Although I was a little surprised, but thinking about it carefully, what can I do? You should go look for him. He is someone from your own country, but he did this to you. If I had a citizen like you, I would definitely treat you as an important guest and satisfy any of your conditions. I definitely wouldn't stab you in the back. Hirohito said, fanning the flames. Ha ha ha, don't make yourself sound so noble. You aren't much better than him. Tang Zheng laughed in disdain. Hirohito's face turned red. He saw that his last hope had been destroyed. The conflict and hatred didn't shift to anyone else. Tang Zheng's gaze towards him was still filled with cold killing intent. The citizens of the island nation discussed among themselves. Their faces were filled with sorrow and fear, and it couldn't be wiped away. The guards also chased out, but they stood at the door and didn't dare to act rashly. They were deeply afraid that Tang Zheng would directly kill the emperor in front of the citizens. Several groups of people gathered at the entrance of the Kokyo. They looked at each other and discussed, but they didn't know what to do. Do you have anything to say to your citizens? Tang Zheng asked. Hirohito clenched his teeth and didn't say a word. You're not going to say anything? It's fine. Tang Zheng shrugged. He flicked his finger and a wave of qi hit Hirohito's legs. With a peng sound, his knees hit the ground. He directly knelt on the ground. Time froze. It was as if everything was frozen. The citizens and guards opened their eyes wide. They looked at this scene in disbelief. Was this a dream? The emperor actually knelt down. There was gold under a man's knees. The emperor had a high status and was the representative of a country. The meaning of him kneeling was even more important. However, he knelt down just like that. Not only did he kneel, but he also represented the island nation. He represented the millions of citizens of the island nation. Didn't you always think that the invasion was wrong? Today, I want you to kneel down and kowtow to the souls that died under your knives and admit your mistakes. Tang Zheng's eyes were cold. He roared in a low voice. Hirohito's face turned red. He tried to resist, but it was to no avail. His body bent down uncontrollably. Peng. His forehead hit the ground heavily, leaving a trail of blood. Dark red blood flowed from his forehead, but he didn't have the chance to wipe it away. With another peng sound, he knocked on the ground, followed by another sound. 3 kowtows, 3 bangs. Each time, it was as if the entire island nation was kowtowing to the souls that died under their knives and admitting their mistakes. Island nation citizens seemed to have lost their souls. They stared blankly at this scene. Many people's eyes were red and tears flowed out. They kept begging, "Don't, Your Majesty." Tang Zheng wasn't soft-hearted. This was the price that they should pay for their ancestors. However, they refused to pay and even refused to admit that part of history. Instead, they mercilessly beautified it. This was like adding salt to the wounds of those who were harmed. If they didn't reflect and admit their mistakes, then they would feel pain. 10 times the pain, 100 times the pain. This was the price. The emperor closed his eyes. He couldn't bear to look at his citizens. His body trembled and he gritted his teeth. He wanted to tear Tang Zheng into pieces, drink his blood, and eat his flesh. Tang Zheng, I will kill you, and I will kill everyone you know, and I will kill all of your compatriot. The emperor roared hysterically. Chapter 1106. The citizens seemed to have lost their souls as they looked at this scene with different expressions. Tang Zheng picked up the Emperor Hirohito, ignoring the blood on his face, and strode towards the crowd. The citizens did not dare to stop him. In their impression, Tang Zheng's image suddenly became tall, like an invincible god of war, causing people to fear him. Island nation people were like this. The weaker you were, the more they would bully you. But if you were strong, then they would respect you and be afraid of you. Although they hated Tang Zheng to the core, they did not dare to resist. Instead, they automatically retreated to the sides, not even daring to look at Tang Zheng. However, they were after all ordinary citizens. To the guards, if the emperor was really taken away in front of everyone, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. It would be even more terrifying than a nuclear explosion. Thus, with an order, they finally did not care about the emperor's safety. They roared and rushed towards Tang Zheng. When the citizens saw the roaring guards rushing over, they screamed and fled in all directions. Tang Zheng glanced at them and did not understand their expressions. He tiptoed and flew into the air, landing on a tall building with the emperor. After a few leaps, they disappeared. The scene of the emperor kneeling down was recorded in time by the phone. Ordinary citizens treated this as a great humiliation, but there were many foreigners in the island nation. The person who recorded this scene was a foreigner. It was as if he had found a big news and spread it on the internet at lightning speed. This was really a big news. The video quickly spread around the world. Island nation's government immediately released a severely worded condemnation letter and listed Tang Zheng as a terrorist, threatening to kill him. Many countries that had a feud with the island nation were secretly delighted. They treated Tang Zheng as a hero. Of course, they still had to say high-sounding words. They went along with the island nation's condemnation, but in reality, they did not do anything. Island nation sent a note to Hua Xia, ordering Hua Xia to ask Tang Zheng to hand over the emperor. Otherwise, it would seriously damage the friendship between the two countries. Hua Xia's officials immediately tried to contact Tang Zheng, but they could not find Tang Zheng at all, let alone ask him to hand over the emperor. This feat completely ignited the enthusiasm of Hua Xia's people. Many people claimed that Tang Zheng was a national hero. Of course, there were also voices of condemnation, saying that Tang Zheng's crazy actions would drag Hua Xia into a situation of eternal damnation and even cause a war. There was no need for Tang Zheng to refute it. A large number of netizens refuted this ridiculous argument, saying that this kind of person was worrying too much. Hua Xia was no longer the sick man of East Asia decades ago. Hua Xia had risen. If the island nation wanted to go to war, then let them pay back the crimes of decades ago with interest. Of course, the island nation was not stupid. The emperor was captured, and the country was in a mess. How would they dare to declare war on Hua Xia? Weren't they courting death? Moreover, the Atlantic Empire did not support him as unreservedly as before. Since the fall of the Rockefeller family, the Atlantic Empire's days were not easy. They did not have the time to come over, so how could they have the leisure to go to the island nation? In the capital of Hua Xia, the bureau chief was flustered and exasperated. He fiercely smashed a few vases before stopping. The anger in his heart could not help but surge out. The others kept quiet out of fear, not daring to act rashly. This Tang Zheng is lawless. He actually dares to do such a crazy thing. These years, our diplomatic relations with the island nation have finally normalized. With his actions, the two countries will be in conflict again. I'm so angry. The bureau chief continued to roar. Yes, Tang Zheng is unorganized and undisciplined. He should be severely punished. The subordinate agreed. Why is there still no news from Tang Zheng's side? The bureau chief took a deep breath and asked sternly. The subordinate said awkwardly, Tang Zheng is in the island nation. We can't contact him at all. His people don't know anything. Even if they know, they won't tell us. H. Does he really think that his small territory is a foreign country? The subordinate did not dare to answer. What exactly is Tang Zheng's motive for doing this? The subordinate hurriedly said, this is a little bit of a clue. It's said that Tang Zheng is doing this because of the investigation of his pharmaceutical factory. He knows that it's the island nation's doing. Yamada must have died in his hands, so he must have found something. The bureau chief's expression kept changing. He pondered in his heart. This matter was getting more and more strange. Tang Zheng's actions were too abnormal. For a pharmaceutical factory, he went against the huge island nation. That was a country. It was no joke to become the country's public enemy. Even if he was a cultivator, it was not an easy thing to do. Could it be? Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind. Could it be that the new drug he developed really has such a miraculous effect? That's why he made such a big fuss. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this matter was fishy. At first, he did not really believe in the effect of the new drug. However, after this incident, he realized that he seemed to have made a big mistake. He had underestimated the strength of Tang Zheng and the King of Medicine. Get the investigation results from the pharmaceutical factory's investigation team out quickly. Find experts to verify it and show me the summary, the bureau chief said coldly. The subordinate did not expect his thoughts to change so quickly. He could not keep up with the pace and looked at him blankly. The bureau chief glared and asked, "Don't you understand what I said?" "Ah, I understand." The subordinate suddenly understood. Although he did not quite understand, he could only do as he was told. Also, continue to contact Tang Zheng. I want to find out what exactly he wants to do. I also want to appease the island nation. Don't let them do anything extreme, the bureau chief ordered. They won't dare. Just carry out my orders. It's not up to you whether they dare or not. Yes. In another secret location in the capital, two people sat in a room, facing each other in silence. The television was broadcasting the scene of the emperor being kneeled down and then being taken away. The atmosphere was silent. After a long time, one of them sighed and said, I really did not expect him to be so daring. His way of doing things is so unpredictable. Haha, his goal is too simple. He wants to lure the snake out of its hole. I am that snake. A young voice sounded, but it was filled with a sense of fear. 100 Faces Star-Lord, is Tang Jing not afraid of you? With his cultivation level, he is not your opponent. He is not afraid of anything, just like me in the past. Now, I am admiring him more and more. You are relaxed. He has turned the spearhead to me, 100 Faces Star-Lord said meaningfully. Under the light, the two faces had different expressions. Their eyes revealed many things that were worth thinking about. If Tang Zheng saw this scene, he would definitely exclaim that Tian Chanzi was too amazing. He had actually calculated correctly. 100 Faces Star-Lord and Ji Wuxiang had secretly joined forces long ago. These two people were 100 Faces Star-Lord and Ji Wuxiang. Sitting opposite each other, the relationship between the two was self-evident. They had indeed secretly colluded long ago. Ever since the Azure Dragon Palace was destroyed and Ji Wuxiang escaped, he realized that the situation was more serious than he had imagined. After analyzing the situation, he realized that only by contacting the 100 Transformation Star-Lord would he be able to achieve his goal. Moreover, with the 100 Transformation Star-Lord as an ally, before his Heaven's Chess was completely successful, he could effectively restrain Tang Jing's forces. This was an excellent opportunity. After he spent a lot of effort to find 100 Faces Star-Lord, the two of them had their own plans and actually succeeded in forming an alliance. However, the two of them did not truly turn enemies into friends. This kind of alliance could fall apart at any time. However, because there was an external force like Tang Jing, this layer of relationship was very stable for the time being. In order to resolve Tang Zheng's last doubt, Ji Wuxiang asked 100 Faces Star-Lord to disguise himself as a great lord. Then, both of them put on a good show to deceive Tang Zheng. Then, Tang Zheng willingly completed the Heaven's Chess for him and activated the Star Force. Everything went smoothly. However, when Ji Wuxiang found out about the magical effect of the Red Lunar Beast, he was tempted. He tried to take the Red Lunar Beast for himself and consumed its inner elixir. Then, he would be able to activate the Star Force freely like Tang Zheng. He would not need to rely on others and be controlled by others. Unfortunately, he did not expect Xiao Bai to be so powerful. In the end, the matter was exposed in advance. He was caught off guard and completely broke off his relationship with Tang Zheng. As a result, his 100-year plan had to be put on hold for now. Of course, he did not give up. The mysteries of the Heaven's Chess could not be explained in a few words. He was confident that he could recreate the glory and great power of the Heaven's Chess. Tang Zheng spent so much effort to lure you out of the cave. What have you done to him recently? Ji Wuxiang did not have Li Palace. It was as if one of his eyes had been dug out. His intelligence was greatly reduced and a lot of information was blocked. Moreover, Tang Zheng had been searching for him all this time. He did not dare to act rashly. Naturally, he did not know about the pharmaceutical factory. 100 Faces Star-Lord was not in charge of the pharmaceutical factory. However, he knew a little about it. In his eyes, it was a small matter that was not worth mentioning. It was just that the island nation took it seriously. He snorted and said, "It's just a small matter. I think he just wants to use this opportunity to make me show myself." "Then will you show yourself?" Since he made such a request, then I will naturally fulfill his wish. I will immediately return to Japan. Also, I will give him a huge surprise. The 100 Transformations Star-Lord's eyes flickered with a meaningful look as he said mysteriously. Ji Wuxiang stared at him and asked curiously, "What surprise?" 100 Faces Star-Lord laughed, "Just you wait. You will know the answer very soon." Ji Wuxiang frowned. He did not like the feeling of being kept in the dark. Because, he also liked to play this trick. However, he did not like others to play this trick on him. Ji Wuxiang snorted coldly in his heart, "I will let you be proud for a while. Once I master the Heaven's Chess, I will not be afraid of you 200 Faces Star-Lords." Chapter 1107. At dawn, Tang Zheng sat on a cliff and watched the sunrise. The sea breeze blew in his face, bringing with it a trace of coolness and the salty taste of the sea. Top point small say, X. Behind him was a 10,000 jong tall cliff. A few weeds poked their heads out from the cracks in the rocks, looking at the sea and braving the sea breeze. The cliff was bare and almost impossible to stand on. There was only a little bit of space for one to stand on. If an ordinary person was here, their legs would have already gone weak and they would have directly fallen off the cliff. This was because this was not a place that ordinary people could reach. Even Emperor Hirohito, who had experienced hundreds of battles and was a martial king, was trembling with fear due to his cultivation being sealed. He did not dare to act rashly and did not look down at the bottom of the cliff. The faint sound of waves hitting the reef was enough to let people know that if they fell down, they would definitely be smashed to pieces. Hirohito really wanted to push Tang Zheng, but in the end, he suppressed this thought. This was because he knew that this would not kill Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng could fly. This little trick would only add to the joke. He fiercely glared at Tang Zheng's back, as if his eyes could pierce through his broad back. He gnashed his teeth so hard that they were almost broken. Tang Zheng did not even blink. He glanced back from the corner of his eyes and said, "You want to kill me? Don't waste your energy. You won't have the chance. Your life has already come to an end. Cherish the last moments of your life." Hirohito's heartstrings trembled. His face was pale as he asked, "What are you waiting for?" 100 Faces Star Sovereign. Tang Zheng did not hide it. "He has already gone to Hua Xia. Why is he here?" Tang Zheng smiled faintly. "We put on a good show in front of the people of the world, and almost everyone in the world will see it. Of course, the 100 Changing Star Sovereign is no exception. Guess what he will do after seeing this good show?" Hirohito was not an idiot. With a flash of inspiration, he understood the crux of the matter and said in realization, "You deliberately used me as bait to lure the 100 Changing Star Lord back to his country? He's not that stupid. Will he come back?" Hirohito didn't answer. After pondering for a long time, he still didn't have a definite answer. Although he had colluded with the 100 Transformation Star-Lord, the 100 Transformation Star-Lord had the absolute initiative. He did not know much about the 100 Transformation Star-Lord, let alone predict his actions. You don't need to answer, because I already have the answer. With the pride of the 100 Change Star Sovereign, he saw through my purpose but still came to find me because the pride in his bones did not allow him to retreat." Tang Zheng smiled as he muttered to himself. Hirohito was shocked. He did not expect Tang Zheng to know so much about the 100 Transformation Star-Lord. Could it be that the enemy really knew him the best? Although he didn't say a word, he already believed in Tang Zheng's judgment. "Then how did he know you were here? Do you think the 100 Transformations Star-Lord is as stupid as you? With his cultivation and intelligence, it wouldn't be difficult for him to track me here." Tang Zheng shrugged and said casually. Hirohito frowned. He didn't comment on Tang Zheng's deliberately mystifying actions. Isn't he here now?" Suddenly, Tang Zheng's voice caused Hirohito's heartstrings to tremble, but when he looked around, he couldn't find any trace of the 100 Transformations Star-Lord, so he couldn't help but ask, "Where is he?" Obviously, he still had a trace of luck, and that was that the 100 Transformations Star-Lord could kill Tang Zheng and save him. Tang Zheng's gaze drifted towards the surface of the sea. A figure gradually walked out from the surface of the sea. This figure wasn't tall, but it gave off the feeling of Mount Tai. Even an ordinary person could feel the aura clearly. Hirohito's pupils shrank as he also noticed the person on the surface of the sea. This person bathed in the morning light walked over from the surface of the sea. He didn't have a boat, but instead walked on the waves as if he was walking on flat ground. The distance was too far, so Hirohito couldn't see this person clearly even with half of his eyes, but he already knew who this person was. The 100 Transformations Star-Lord. Only he had such an aura, walking on the waves as if he was walking on flat ground. That thin and small body contained a terrifying power. Hirohito's breathing couldn't help but quicken as a light appeared in his eyes. He bit his lips and silently prayed, "100 Transformations Star-Lord, quickly kill Tang Zheng and tear him into pieces." Tang Zheng's expression was calm as he looked at the person walking over from the morning light. He felt the aura from the other party, but his heart was as still as water, like an ancient well without ripples. 100 Transformations Star-Lord walked as if he was taking a stroll, but his speed was extremely fast. It didn't take long for him to arrive near the cliff. He raised his head and looked at the cliff. Although they were thousands of meters apart, the two pairs of eyes collided in midair. Invisible sparks seemed to collide as their eyes met, and a suffocating aura filled the air. Tang Zheng didn't move, but the sea breeze caused his clothes to flutter. 100 transformations. Star-Lord moved. He raised his foot, and the sea water seemed to boil. A water column slowly rose like a water dragon, lifting 100 transformations. Star-Lord into mid-air. Every time he took a step, a water column would immediately rise from the void. It was like a plum blossom pile. He stepped on the plum blossom pile and approached Tang Zheng step by step. The water column supported him as he walked thousands of meters in the air. It was a magnificent sight. If someone saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked. In any case, Hirohito's body was trembling. He was so shocked that his eyeballs were about to pop out. He knew that 100 transformations Star-Lord was powerful, but he didn't expect him to be this powerful. This kind of divine ability was something he didn't even dare to dream of, but 100 transformation Star-Lord was able to use it so easily. He was trembling because of the lingering fear. In the past, he had wanted to kill 100 transformation Star-Lord. He had decided that after everything was over, he would kill the huge threat that was 100 transformation Star-Lord. Now, it seemed that this thought of his was very dangerous. 100 transformations Star-Lord only needed to lift a finger to kill him. He stared hard at Tang Zheng, wanting to see his face and his reaction. However, Tang Zheng's back was facing him, and he couldn't see his face at all. However, Tang Zheng's lazy look was clearly visible. It was as if he didn't care about 100 transformations Star-Lord at all. What was he relying on? How could he be so calm when facing 100 transformations Star-Lord? Hirohito felt a deep sense of defeat. He had lived for more than half his life, but he couldn't even compare to such a young brat. He had really lived his life like a dog. Tang Zheng really didn't have much of a reaction. He just quietly watched 100 transformations Star-Lord approach. In the end, when the two were about 10 meters apart, 100 transformations Star-Lord stopped. He stood on the water column and looked at Tang Zheng from afar. It was as if he wanted to see the changes in him. He had to admit that Tang Zheng had indeed changed a lot. Especially after he absorbed the power of the stars, his cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. His aura had changed quite a bit. He just stood there casually, but he gave off a completely different feeling. This mysterious feeling couldn't be felt by ordinary people, but 100 transformations Star-Lord knew it clearly. It made him involuntarily think of the first time he met Tang Zheng. In Buzhou Mountain, he wanted to catch Tang Zheng as a puppet and accompany him for a long time. In the end, Tang Zheng, Tian Chanzi, and the others successfully escaped. 100 transformations Star-Lord took advantage of the opportunity to chase after them, but he also left Buzhou Mountain. If it wasn't for Tang Zheng and Tian Chanzi's visit, 100 transformation Star-Lord would definitely still be imprisoned in Buzhou Mountain. Therefore, 100 transformations Star-Lord could regain his freedom because of Tang Zheng. However, 100 transformations Star-Lord was never a person who knew how to repay kindness. He wanted to be straightforward and follow his own heart. Everything else was just a side branch that wasn't important. Now that Tang Zheng was his enemy, he didn't want to take him as a puppet. He only wanted to destroy him physically. Tang Zheng, you deliberately led me here. Do you think you've lived long enough? 100 transformations Star-Lord looked at him with a smile and asked jokingly. He had the right to ask this question because his cultivation was indeed much higher than Tang Zheng's. Even if Tang Zheng was already at the 7th grade of the Yuanying realm, he was still far from 100 transformations Star-Lord. After all, he was an expert in the divine transformation realm. Only the Empyrean Fairy and Tian Chanzi could compete with him. Even Tian Chanzi was inferior. Tang Zheng was unmoved by his sarcasm and said indifferently, 100 transformation Star-Lord, I've been looking for you for a long time. You actually went to Huashia and were right under my nose, but I didn't notice at all. 100 transformations Star-Lord smiled coldly, if I can't even do this, then wouldn't I have lived for 10,000 years in vain? Although he had lived for 10,000 years, He had been imprisoned in Mount Buzhou all this time. Even his cultivation didn't improve during this period of imprisonment. Instead, it regressed. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fallen to such a state. 100 Transformations Star-Lord knew this very well, so he had been trying to restore his former glory and glory. However, it was easier said than done. It wasn't something that could be done overnight. His cultivation was too high, so it wasn't as easy for him to recover as Qian Chanzi. This was because the further one cultivated, the more difficult it was. 100 Transformations Star-Lord was no exception. Haha, yes, 10,000 years. However, I think you've really lived for nothing. Tang Zheng said lightly. 100 Transformations Star-Lord raised his eyebrows and said angrily, nonsense. What right do you have to judge me? Everyone in the world has the right to judge you. Because of what you've done, why can't they judge you? It's a pity that the great 100 Transformations Star-Lord is colluding with Ji Wuxiang. TSK. This is so embarrassing. I'm afraid even the ancient people from tens of thousands of years ago will feel ashamed. Tang Zheng said jokingly. Haha, kid, you're quite eloquent. 100 Transformations Star-Lord is really getting worse and worse. He actually colluded with Ji Wuxiang. He really is an embarrassment to us ancient people. Caillou jumped out and said. The inner demons didn't want to be left behind and said, if it wasn't for him breaking Mount Buzhou, he wouldn't be so famous. So, young man, don't be afraid of him. This time, we can teach him a lesson and help you vent your anger. Tang Zheng didn't say anything. Caillou and the inner demons made it sound good, but they weren't going to do anything. 100 Transformations Star-Lord heard this and jumped up. He exclaimed, how do you know about me and Ji Wuxiang? Chapter 1108. If you don't want anyone to know, then don't do it in the first place. 100 Change Star-Lord, you colluding with Ji Wuxiang is no different from asking a tiger for its skin. Do you really think he will sincerely submit to you or help you? Tang Zheng asked. 100 Change Star-Lord laughed loudly. Why would I need his submission or help? I'm just giving him some benefits. One day, after you and the Empyrean Fairy return to the West, he will naturally be my next target. No, he can't even be considered a target. I can easily kill you. Tang Zheng sneered. Your wishful thinking is too good. Unfortunately, Ji Wuxiang is not a pushover. He has been operating for so many years, how can he be destroyed with just a few words? You should know about the celestial chess, right? You helped him bewitch me, allowing the celestial chess to take shape. You haven't seen the power of the celestial chess, and you don't understand it. When the celestial chess is truly completed, whether it's you or the people of the world, no one can escape from his control. His ambition is even greater than Ji Wuxiang's. Although 100 Change Star-Lord had lived for so many years, his wisdom was definitely not as great as Ji Wuxiang's. This was because he had always lived in a world isolated from the rest of the world. There were no open struggles or secret struggles. Without experience, there was naturally no growth, especially in the aspect of wisdom. Of course, his ambition was not that great. He was not like Ji Wuxiang, who had the determination to rule the world. He was more like a child playing around. Everything had to be done according to his wishes. If it didn't work, then he would kill without hesitation. However, it was precisely this unbridled style of doing things that was very annoying. Go with the flow and you'll prosper, and go against it and you'll die. 100 Change Star-Lord raised his head and said unhappily, how can he be compared to me? If he wants to rule the world, why can't I? Haha, let me tell you, you've misjudged me. My ambition is greater than his. You'll see in a while. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. He suddenly had an ominous premonition and asked suspiciously, what do you mean by that? Haha, what do you mean? I also want to play around in this world. It will definitely be very interesting. Everyone in the world will be my toys. The 100 Transformations Star-Lord was in high spirits as he spoke. Do you think I'll let you have your way? Do you have the ability to stop me? If it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to keep you here to see what I'm capable of, I would have killed you right now. 100 Change Star Sovereign snorted disdainfully. He did not put Tang Zheng in his eyes at all. I'll begin now. Watch carefully. The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign raised his hands, and a mysterious power burst out from his palms. In an instant, the sky resounded with the sound of thunder. Dark clouds began to gather, and wind and waves began to blow on the sea. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Wave after wave surged from the seaside and fiercely slapped the reef. Peng, peng. The reef was smashed into pieces by the waves. The waves seemed to contain boundless power. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank as he asked, "What are you doing? Didn't I tell you before? I'll let you see what I'm capable of. I want to be the master of this world. I also want to play." The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign grinned, revealing a mouthful of snow-white teeth. His young face was filled with madness. "What are you trying to do?" Tang Zheng still did not understand his true intentions. "Haha, if I want to play with the world in my hands, of course I have to bring in a new power. Back then, I summoned the demons back, but in the end, it failed because of you. I learned from the painful experience and understood the reason. I was too merciful." Merciful? Tang Zheng clicked his tongue. Others could use this word, but the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign was not. Because of the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array, the act of summoning the demons back had killed tens of thousands of island nations' people. This method was not something an ordinary person could compare to. The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign did not pay attention to Tang Zheng's sarcasm as he muttered to himself, "Actually, you also played a part in this. The Tree of Life appeared in the world because of you. The Tree of Life improved the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Even the spiritual energy of the island nation became more and more abundant. This time, I was able to set up the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array more easily." "What? You set up the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array again?" Tang Zheng was shocked. He knew how dangerous the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array was. This was an array that went against heaven and earth. He did not expect the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign to set up such an array. He was truly insane to the extreme. Seeing Tang Zheng's shocked expression, the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign seemed to enjoy it. He excitedly said, "Are you afraid? You're crazy." "Haha, how could I be crazy? The Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array needs countless blood and lives as the price. How many people do you want to kill?" Tang Zheng asked with a pale face. "How many people? Let me calculate." I can't calculate it." The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign counted with his fingers for a while. "Actually, you don't need to calculate this because I'm prepared to use the lives of everyone in this country to activate the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array. How powerful do you think the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array will be? How many demons can it summon?" When he said this, Tang Zheng was so shocked that he almost fell off the cliff. He was not afraid, but shocked. The way he looked at the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign changed again and again. In the end, he could not find any words to describe this person. The ancients said that 1,000 people would be killed and 10,000 people would be slaughtered. In front of the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign, these people were not even worthy of carrying his shoes. This was because he wanted to kill over 100 million people. The island nation had a population of over 100 million. In order to activate the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array and summon more demons, the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign actually wanted to kill over 100 million people. Even though Tang Zheng did not have a good impression of this country, when he heard this, he felt his hair stand on end. Even the rising sun could not dispel the chill in his heart. Not only Tang Zheng, but even Emperor Hirohito was shocked by these words. He still remembered the scene when the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign activated the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array. Dark clouds covered the sky, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. It was as if the end of the world had come. There was a hole in the sky, and then a group of people fell from the sky. What left a deep impression on him was that he personally ordered tens of thousands of criminals to be brought out from prison and killed on the spot. It was simply a bloodbath and corpses were everywhere. Hirohito had killed many people, but when he saw that scene, he knew what it meant to have many people die. That scene was imprinted in his mind and could not be erased for a long time. Later on, He even had nightmares about it. This time, the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign wanted to activate the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array again to summon more demons. What Hirohito did not expect was that he wanted to use the lives and blood of all the people in the island nation as the price. He could no longer find the right words to describe this matter. As for his mood, it could be seen from his trembling body and mind. As the ruler of a country, no one would feel good if their own people were treated as worthless sacrifices. Of course, Hirohito was not a good person either. Last time, in order to curry favor with the 100 Faces Star-Lord, he took the initiative to offer so many lives, which could be seen from this. However, it was different this time. If the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign succeeded, this country would cease to exist. Without his citizens, what was the use of him as the emperor? A commander without an army, a country of one person? He was not that stupid. Hirohito did his best to suppress the fear and anger in his heart as he loudly shouted, 100 Transformation Star Sovereign, you absolutely cannot do this. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign rolled his eyes as he looked at him with disdain and said, why can't I do this? Then my country will be finished. Hirohito bitterly said. The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign was unmoved as he lightly said, what does your country being finished have to do with me? What does it have to do with me? These 4 simple words made Hirohito feel as if he was struck by lightning. He was the ruler of a country, but the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign was not. He could treat the people of the world as his toys, so why would he care about the lives of a mere country? Hirohito's face became incomparably pale, but he did not give up. He did not give up as he begged, 100 Transformations Star Sovereign, you really cannot do this. This will destroy my country and my citizens. They will all accept their fate. Human lives? Is that valuable? Since ancient times, human lives have been the most worthless, the least worth mentioning. Even if these few people die, there will be more in the future. Haven't you always been saying that the world's population is too large? I've helped you reduce it a little, so you should be thanking me. Moreover, the world has changed since the return of the demon race. What's the point of having so many people? The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign's attitude was cold and resolute, causing a chill to run down one's spine. Hirohito was so angry that he could not speak. He pointed at the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign, unable to say a single word for a long time, but the fear and anger in his eyes were clearly visible. Tang Zheng understood Hirohito's thoughts very well. He asked, weren't you still thinking that he would save you? This is inviting a wolf into the house. Now you know the consequences. Hirohito was so regretful that his intestines turned green. If he could do it all over again, he definitely would not have chosen to collude with Hirohito. No matter how great the temptation, he would have kept a respectful distance. But unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. He could only swallow the evil consequences he had sowed. He racked his brains and finally turned his gaze to Tang Zheng. His eyes gradually lit up as if he had grasped at a life-saving straw. He said impatiently, Tang Zheng, didn't your Hua Xia people always want us to admit to our history of invasion? As long as you stop the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign, I promise you that I will publicly admit to that history and compensate those who were harmed by the war. At the final juncture of life and death, Hirohito threw out what he believed to be a very important bargaining chip in an attempt to have Tang Zheng stop the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign's crazy actions. Tang Zheng stared at him coldly and said, I don't need these false promises of yours. Even if you do, will you honor them in the end? I will honor them, I will. Hirohito nodded hurriedly. Tang Zheng sneered, but did not comment. How could he believe Hirohito's words? However, even without Hirohito's promise, he would not sit idly by. He was not simply doing this for the sake of the hundreds of millions of lives. This was because once the demon race returned on a large scale, there would be too many variables in this world. Those affected would not be just 100 million people, but everyone. Chapter 1109. Hearing the conversation between the two, the 100 Faces Star-Lord did not mind and said casually, Tang Zheng, do you really want to stand up for him? This way, you will only die faster. You won't even be able to see the return of the demon clan. That scene will definitely be the most soul-stirring scene in this world. The pinnacle of novels. Tang Zheng remained unmoved. He opened his palm and a sword light flashed, reflecting the light of the morning sun. The war soul sword quietly appeared in his palm. The tip of the sword pointed straight at the 100 Faces Star Lord. The 100 Faces Star Lord curled his lips in disdain and said, "Since you are in such a hurry to die, then I will fulfill your wish." After saying this, he lifted his leg and walked towards Tang Zheng. The water pillar once again rose into the air from the sea, supporting his legs as he quickly approached Tang Zheng. At the same time, the scene between heaven and earth was completely different. Huge black clouds completely enveloped the huge island nation, the waves roared, the wind blew, and the horizon was completely blocked by the black clouds. The world quickly darkened, as if it had turned from day to night. This scene alarmed everyone. Many people ran to the streets and alleys and raised their heads to look. Looking at the dark clouds that seemed to be about to fall to the ground and feeling the oppressive feeling coming from above their heads, everyone felt their breathing tighten at the same time, and their expressions changed greatly. They looked at each other in dismay, but there was nothing they could do. Yesterday, His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor had been kidnapped and there had been no news of him. Now, this strange scene had appeared in the sky. Could it be that the gods wanted to punish the island nation and the end of the world had arrived? Fear quickly spread. Many people ran in all directions, but the sky was filled with black clouds. There was nowhere to run. Many people stared blankly at the sky, indifferent. They were so scared that they didn't know what to do. In front of the cliff, the 100 Faces Star Lord had already arrived in front of Tang Zheng. Their eyes met and they were just inches away from each other. Tang Zheng took the initiative to launch an attack. Ha! With a deep roar, Tang Zheng pointed his finger, and the battle soul flew towards the 100 Change Star Lord. Yuan Ying's 7th stage power erupted in an instant, almost reaching the limit. The Yuan Ying in his body glowed with a mysterious purple light. After it circulated, it turned into streams of true qi, like a trickling stream, filling each of his meridians. Then, the innate qi gathered at the tip of Tang Zheng's finger. When he lightly pointed out, all of the innate qi poured into the War Soul Sword. In an instant, the War Soul Sword shone brightly, to the extent that it even glowed with a purple light. Whoosh! The War Soul Sword slashed towards the 100 Change Star Sovereign. The 100 Change Star Sovereign did not even blink. With a thought, a pillar of water soared into the sky and turned into a natural barrier, blocking the sword. The water column dispersed, and a strong wind blew like a storm, hitting the cliff. Tang Zheng did not move, but all the wind and rain could not get close to his body. On the contrary, the Emperor Hirohito at the side was drenched like a rat in soup, and was in a sorry state. His legs became more and more weak. His 10 fingers tightly gripped the cliff, resisting the storm with difficulty, so that he would not fall down and be smashed into pieces. Insignificant skill. Looking at the War Soul Sword that was facing him in midair, the 100 Faces Star Lord spat out these 4 words in disdain. He took a few steps forward and closed the distance between him and Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng, be careful. The 100 Faces Star Lord is determined to kill you. If you don't go all out, you will be in danger. The inner demons warned. Caillou did not say a word, as if he had fallen into silence. No one knew what he was thinking. Ever since the 100 Faces Star Lord revealed his grand plan, Caillou had fallen into silence, absent-minded. However, at this moment, Tang Zheng was wholeheartedly focused on dealing with the 100 Faces Star Lord, so he did not have the mood to figure him out. Don't worry, I've been going all out. Tang Zheng clenched his teeth and squeezed out a few words with difficulty. Then, he roared, War Soul Sword, kill. A ray of light flashed through his mind like lightning. His eyes lit up as he had a flash of inspiration. The Taiji 2 forms sword technique had actually burst out again. He had learned a total of 3 moves from this set of sword techniques. However, if not for the critical moment, he would have completely forgotten about this set of sword techniques. Therefore, even if he wanted to practice this set of sword techniques, he would not be able to do so. At this moment, the 3 moves of the Taiji 2 form sword technique appeared at the same time. Tang Zheng's body immediately made the corresponding adjustments. His body and mind became one, and the 3 moves of the sword technique were executed in one go. The War Soul Sword drew a few large circles in the air and attacked the 100 Faces Star Lord. The 100 Faces Star Lord did not put this attack in his eyes at all. With a slap of his hand, a wave of sea jumped out from his palm. It was like an angry dragon that instantly welcomed the War Soul Sword. However, a strange scene appeared. The Berserk Wave attack suddenly stopped, stopping in the large circle drawn by the War Soul Sword. The War Soul Sword flashed and directly pierced through the waves. Bang! The waves exploded and turned into seawater that filled the sky. The War Soul Sword cut through the thistles and thorns, passing through the waves and arriving in front of the 100 Faces Star Lord. The 100 Faces Star Lord was shocked. He never thought that the War Soul Sword would be able to break through his defense and attack a place that was just inches away from him. His eyes immediately burst out with a terrifying light as he roared, "Stop!" His 2 palms struck forward, and the waves that filled the sky smashed onto the War Soul Sword from both sides. The War Soul Sword's attack came to an abrupt end as it was pinched by the 2 huge waves and was unable to move. Break! Boom! 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 A long series of explosions came out from the waves. The War Soul Sword started to buzz and tremble. Its attack was completely disintegrated, and even the War Soul Sword seemed to be on the verge of being broken by this huge force. Tang Zheng's body and mind were greatly shaken, his power was gradually being consumed, the War Soul Sword was connected to his mind, so when the War Soul Sword was heavily injured, he naturally did not feel good, his face turned pale, and a trace of blood gradually flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Seeing Tang Zheng's reaction, the 100 Faces Star Lord snorted coldly and said, "This is not over yet, you can't hold on anymore." Tang Zheng clenched his teeth, channeled his power, and resisted. He did not immediately release the Shura, because when exchanging blows with an expert, especially an expert like the 100 Faces Star Lord, he could always force himself into a desperate situation, reaching a kind of limit. Only in this way could he achieve the goal of tempering himself. Although the situation was dangerous, Tang Zheng still clenched his teeth and endured. Whiz! Suddenly, the War Soul Sword flew backwards, transforming into a ray of light that brushed past Tang Zheng's skin. The burning sensation caused Tang Zheng's entire body to quiver. Boom! The War Soul Sword stabbed into the cliff, almost to the hilt, causing rocks to fly everywhere. Hirohito was unlucky enough to suffer. He was beaten to the point that he grimaced in pain and sucked in a breath of cold air. Tang Zheng looked at the area below his ribs, where the War Soul Sword had just brushed past. His clothes had already been cut open, and his skin had also turned bright red. This was the power of the War Soul Sword. If not for the fact that the War Soul Sword was connected to his mind, at the last moment, the War Soul Sword would have used all of its abilities and deviated slightly, and he would have been pierced through by the War Soul Sword. Although his primal Chaos Vajra spell had been cultivated to the Vajra realm, it was still difficult for Vajra to resist the attack of a sacred artifact like the War Soul Sword. Hehe, Tang Zheng, how about this move? You want to show off your insignificant skills in front of me? You're dreaming. The 100 Faces Star Lord snorted disdainfully and mocked. Looks like you don't have any more moves. Hurry up and die. The 100 Faces Star Lord attacked again. With a flick of his 5 fingers, 5 water pillars flew towards Tang Zheng with an oppressive aura. Tang Zheng turned around and grabbed the hilt of the War Soul Sword, trying to pull it out. However, the moment he grabbed the hilt, 3 rays of light flashed across his mind, and 3 bronze men appeared in his mind, quickly moving. Tang Zheng was so lucky that he almost exclaimed, the new move of the Taiji two-form sword technique. This set of sword techniques had a total of 6 levels and 36 moves. Currently, Tang Zheng had only learned the first 3 moves of the first level, and these 3 moves were the last 3 moves of the first level. This caused Tang Zheng to be pleasantly surprised, because the power of the 3 moves that appeared at the same time was definitely not small. After the bronze man finished practicing the 3 sword techniques, he subconsciously followed the instructions and performed them. A strong sword intent gushed out, and with a boom, the cliff around the War Soul Sword exploded, and the War Soul Sword flew out from the cliff, once again seeing the light of day. A mighty sword chi surged out from the sword, and even Tang Zheng, the person who used the sword, could not help but feel a surge of emotions. He did not have time to think, and pointed his sword at the 100 Faces Star Lord. The War Soul sword flew out once again, but this time, it did not directly slash at the 100 Faces Star Lord. Instead, it circled above his head, and in an instant, the aura of the world merged with the sword chi, causing an earth-shattering change. The 100 Faces Star Lord looked at this scene in astonishment. He did not recognize the Taiji two-form sword technique, but when he saw this scene, he instinctively had a bad premonition. However, he did not put Tang Zheng in his eyes at all. He thought to himself that no matter how powerful this sword technique was, how powerful could it be? He was just worrying for nothing. He did not have time to think. With a grab of his hands, the seawater gathered into a large hand and grabbed towards the War Soul sword. However, all of this did not go as he wished. With a few whooshing sounds, the War Soul sword seemed to randomly slash a few times above his head. The scene changed drastically, and a Taiji yin-yang fish gradually appeared out of thin air. What the hell is this? The 100 Faces Star Lord muttered to himself suspiciously. I don't care what you're doing. In front of me, all of this is nothing. The big hand suddenly grabbed over, trying to tear apart the Taiji yin-yang fish. The War Soul sword stopped and stabbed into the Taiji yin-yang fish's yang fish eye. In an instant, the Taiji yin-yang fish's black and white light immediately soared into the sky. Even the black clouds in the sky were torn apart, and a ray of sunlight pierced through the gaps in the black clouds. Tang Zheng was also completely shocked by this scene. He never thought that after completing the first level of the Taiji two-form sword technique, there would be such a qualitative change. Moreover, he had a strange feeling. In the past, after he used the Taiji two-form sword technique, he would immediately forget about the sword moves. But now, the 6 sword moves were vividly preserved in his mind, as if there were no signs of them disappearing. Could it be that after cultivating to the first level, the sword moves that he had learned would not disappear, but would instead be preserved forever? This discovery made him overjoyed. If not for this critical moment, he would have jumped up in joy. Chapter 11:10. Tang Zheng was well aware of the power of the Taiji yin-yang sword technique. This was a sword technique that was even more exquisite than the heavenly flying immortal's sword technique. Once it was cultivated to the extreme, its power would be unimaginable. Apex novel. Of course, even if it was cultivated to the first level, the power of this sword technique was still an eye-opener for Tang Zheng. Especially the Taiji yin-yang fish in the sky, he felt that this pattern was definitely not as simple as it looked on the surface. As if to confirm his guess, the Taiji yin-yang fish quickly rotated. The War Soul sword was inserted into the fish eye of the Taiji yin-yang fish, constantly emitting light. The sword light and the Taiji yin-yang fish perfectly merged together. Seeing this scene, the 100 Change Star Lord smacked his lips. With his experience, he had never seen such a scene before, nor did he know who created this sword technique. However, the pressure coming from above his head made him feel that his previous words were biased. This sword technique was definitely not as weak as he thought. If it fell into the hands of another expert, even he could not underestimate its power. It was a pity that Tang Zheng's cultivation was still too weak. Although the 100 Change Star Lord had mixed feelings, he did not retreat. Instead, he focused all his attention. With a thought, the hand formed by the seawater tried to tear the pattern apart. Whoosh 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 whoosh, a series of air-piercing sounds suddenly rang out. It started to rain from the sky. Sword rain. Sword light fell from the Taiji yin-yang fish. Tens of thousands of sword light slashed towards the big hand. Puff puff puff. The big hand was instantly torn into pieces and scattered in the air above the sea. The 100 Change Star Lord was startled. Although he had already realized the power of this sword technique, he was still deeply shocked when he saw this scene. Even he had misjudged it. It was enough to show how magical this sword technique was. So what if it's magical? The more magical it is, the more I want to destroy it. The 100 Change Star Lord snorted coldly. Tang Zheng, you are very impressive. With your cultivation, you actually forced me to use my magic treasure. 100 Change Star Lord's voice was low. There was a sense of terror that did not match his young appearance. He waved his hand, and the celestial water banner flashed. It appeared before him out of thin air. It grew with the wind, and in a short while, it became a large banner. As soon as the heavenly water banner appeared, the sky changed again. The crack in the dark clouds gradually closed up. Sky water banner, water flood the blue sky. 100 Change Star Lord roared. The sky water banner fluttered in the wind, and the banner's shadows kept churning. Whoosh! Like a whale sucking in water, a water column appeared in the sea. Then, it was swept up by the sky water banner. The small banner seemed to be able to contain endless seawater. The sea seemed to be sucked dry by the sky water banner. The sea level dropped rapidly. In the next second, the heavenly water banner unfurled again. With a rumble, the dark sky was completely filled with seawater, and it rushed toward the Tai Chi yin-yang fish. Water was the softest thing in the world, but it was also the hardest thing in the world. Using softness to overcome hardness, there was nothing it could not overcome. There was a loud rumble. The Tai Chi yin-yang fish was smashed into pieces by the seawater, turning into specks of light and drifting away. Wang. The War Soul Sword was the first to bear the brunt of the impact, and was even more affected by the seawater that filled the sky. In the end, it could not hold on any longer and fell into the sea. Puff! Tang Zheng spat out a mouthful of blood, his eyes darkened. He and the War Soul Sword were connected by heart, and when the War Soul Sword suffered a heavy blow, it was as if he himself had suffered a heavy blow. Seeing that the War Soul Sword was about to fall into the sea and be swept into the dark waves, he did not care about his injuries and pain. He forcefully channeled his energy and suppressed his injuries. He gritted his teeth and growled, "War Soul Sword, come back." Whiz! The War Soul Sword flew back shakily, its light dimming a little. Tang Zheng stroked it in pain, and the sword spirit said weakly, "Master, it's all because I'm useless. I couldn't block the 100 Change Star Lord's attack, and implicated Master. Don't say any more, rest first." Tang Zheng kept the War Soul Sword back into Sumeru world. 100 Change Star Lord looked at this scene and laughed complacently. "Tang Zheng, how is it? Do you still think you're my opponent? Do you still think you can survive my attack? Let me tell you, all of this is just your wishful thinking. It's time for you to die." Tang Zheng took a deep breath, but did not reply. Instead, he continued to circulate his energy to take care of his body. Just now, he had indeed suffered quite a few injuries, and his fighting strength had been greatly reduced. Since the 100 Change Star Lord liked to show off, then he would let him show off to his heart's content. "I'm being merciful. Although I wanted to kill you directly and not let you see the shocking scene, I changed my mind at the last moment. I'll let you see the next scene because I believe you'll feel even more despair. Haha, dying in despair is a punishment that makes me happier than killing you directly." The 100 Change Star Lord laughed wildly, without hiding anything. He raised both of his hands, aimed at the dark sky, and roared, "With blood as a guide, sacrifice to the mountains and rivers, blood sacrifice to the mountains and rivers, return to the demon clan. Catcher." As soon as he finished speaking, a bolt of lightning lit up in the black clouds, as if it was a fuse. In an instant, lightning flashed in the black clouds, and thunder snakes surged. Bolts of lightning as thick as buckets fell from the sky, landing on all the lands of the island nation. Boom! 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 Like a bomb, after the lightning struck down, this part of the world turned into a sea of flames. With the power of the flames, the sea quickly spread, and many people were engulfed by the flames, disappearing into thin air. The people of the island nation watched this scene in a daze. Many of them were completely stunned. Even if the lightning landed not far from them, these people did not move at all, as if they did not see it at all. They were in a daze, and only their bodies were left. The three people at the edge of the cliff did not see the scene on the island nation's land, but they could clearly see the lightning that fell from the sky like hail. The 100 Change Star Lord enjoyed this scene very much, and a joyful expression appeared on his face. Emperor Hirohito's mind seemed to be pulled away, but it immediately returned to his body. His whole body trembled, and directly fell to the ground. He knelt down in front of the 100 Change Star Lord, crying and begging, 100 Change Star Lord, I beg you, please stop. The 100 Change Star Lord looked at Hirohito coldly and asked, Beg me? Haha, you don't know how many people have begged me, but do you know the result? Hirohito looked at him blankly. It's useless, ha ha ha. The 100 Change Star Lord laughed wildly. How can I, the 100 Change Star Lord, give up halfway because of other people's begging or obstruction? It was the same when I broke Mount Bujo in the past, and it's the same when I activated the Mountains and Rivers Blood Sacrifice Array. No one can stop me. Crazy, he's really crazy. It's been 10,000 years, but the madness in his bones has not changed at all. Instead, it's getting more and more intense. Seeing this scene, the inner demons could not help but bitterly complain. Caillou still remained silent. Caillou, when did you become so quiet? The inner demons could not help but ask. Ever since the start of the war, Caillou seemed to have become very quiet. He kept his mouth shut and did not say a word. Tang Zheng did not pay attention to the conversation between the two. He also stared blankly at the strange phenomenon in the sky. One could imagine the shock in his heart. He blankly muttered, Is the Mountains and Rivers Blood Sacrifice Array so powerful? Why wasn't it like this before? He did not know that the 100 Change Star Lord had spent a lot of effort and meticulously studied the Mountains and Rivers Blood Sacrifice Array for a long time in order to maximize the power of the Mountains and Rivers Blood Sacrifice Array. In the end, he improved the array himself and quietly set it up on the huge island nation. He only needed to wait for today, and everything would be done. He improved the array. The inner demons directly answered Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng suddenly realized, but his heart also trembled. The 100 Change Star Lord had really put in a lot of effort in order to let the demons return. Now that the array has been activated, what should he do? The array has been activated. With your cultivation, you can't stop him. The inner demons sighed and said helplessly, Can't stop him? Tang Zheng was shocked. No, if I can't stop him, then wouldn't the world be in chaos? Yes, but you can't do anything. Unless the Empyrean Fairy is here, maybe he has a way to stop this catastrophe. The inner demons said helplessly. The Empyrean Fairy? Tang Zheng's eyes dimmed. The Empyrean Fairy was on the island. Distant water could not put out a nearby fire. This method would not work at all. No, I can't just sit here and wait for death. I want Shura to deal with him. Since the Empyrean Fairy can stop this catastrophe, Shura's strength is only higher than hers. He can definitely do it as well. Tang Zheng said impatiently. The inner demons was silent. He did not want to attack Tang Zheng. In his opinion, what the Empyrean Fairy could do, Shura might not be able to do it, even though his fighting strength was higher. This was because Shura was not under Tang Zheng's control. He was a killing machine that could only do simple fighting and killing. He could not do more delicate work. But now, he was treating a dead horse as a living horse. He did not want to refute Tang Zheng and attack his confidence. Hey, Caillou, are you mute? Why are you acting so strange today? The inner demons held back for a long time before finally pointing the spearhead at Caillou. But after waiting for a long time, Caillou still did not answer him. The inner demons had no choice but to shut up resentfully. Looking at the increasing number of lightning bolts in the sky, the explosions between heaven and earth covered the sound of surging waves, making one's hair stand on end. Tang Zheng took a deep breath and secretly called out, Shura, come out. With a thought, Shura flew out from Sumeru World. His huge body was like a giant standing between heaven and earth. Shura flew into the air and suddenly opened his tightly closed eyes. The suppressive effect of the Ksitagaba Sutra immediately collapsed. The violent killing intent in his eyes soared to the sky as if it wanted to break through a large hole in the dense black clouds. What a familiar killing intent! The 100 Faces Star Sovereign cried out in surprise and looked over. When he saw Shura, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His gaze froze as he said in a daze, What the hell is this? He did not recognize Shura, but he was very familiar with that killing intent. This was because not long ago, the same killing intent had appeared in the capital. He did not go to the Go Club, so he did not see Shura. Chapter 11:11. What the hell is this? 100 Change Star Lord looked at the Azura in shock. Even with his tens of thousands of years of experience, he still could not recognize what the giant thing in front of him was. Azura. Tang Zheng answered. Azura? 100 Change Star Lord was stunned. He knew very little about the world of spirits and souls, so he was still at a loss. What's an Azura? It doesn't matter what he is. As long as he can deal with you, that's enough. Chimph, deal with me? Dream on. Although 100 Change Star Lord realized that the Azura was powerful, he did not think that the Azura was his opponent. Therefore, he was still very confident. Whoosh! The sky water banner waved, and the monstrous sea water rushed into the sky and swept over. Tang Zheng did not move at all. When the Shura sensed the threat, he immediately reacted. His huge eyes widened as he glared at Tang Zheng. A baleful aura that soared into the sky immediately enveloped the 100 Transformation Star Lord. 100 Change Star Lord felt a chill all over his body as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He quickly activated his secret technique to resist the bone-chilling cold. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as he locked onto the Azura. The sky water banner swept up the sea water and attacked the Azura from all directions. Roar! 100 Change Star Lord let out an earth-shattering roar. The world seemed to be pierced by this sound. His huge body directly pounced on 100 Change Star Lord. A cold light flashed in his hand, and the Azura saber appeared. Whoosh! The aura between heaven and earth was completely stirred up by this saber. The Azura saber violently slashed at 100 Change Star Lord. Boom! The Azura saber and the sea water collided. Space and time seemed to have frozen. The huge roar caused tinnitus in people's ears. In an instant, nothing could be heard. Only the scene in front of them showed everything that was happening. It was like a pantomime. The sea water was split open by the Azura saber. Then, the gap grew bigger and bigger as if it was splitting heaven and earth. The energy that burst out from it almost made people's hearts stop beating and breathing difficult. The Azura saber did not stop its attack. It split the waves like a hot knife through butter and landed on the sky water banner. This time, there was no loud noise. The attacks of the two magic treasures stopped abruptly in midair, but a dazzling light burst out. In an instant, the world was covered by this light. Tang Zheng, Multiform Starlord, and Hirohito subconsciously closed their eyes. In the next second, they hurriedly opened their eyes and widened their eyes. The dazzling light dissipated and the scene in front of them turned upside down. The heavenly water banner flew out of the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign's hand. The Azura stood there proudly. The Azura saber flickered with a dim light and emitted a terrifying pressure. It was clear that the Azura had won this round. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign stared blankly at his empty palm. He felt as if he was dreaming. He was actually no match for the Azura. He had been defeated in one strike. One had to know that he had used his full strength in this attack. His lifetime of cultivation was actually unable to gain the upper hand in front of the Azura. The Azura did not have so many complicated thoughts. He was like a single-celled organism. His only thought was to kill. Kill everything in front of him. Seeing that the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign was in a daze, the Azura made a prompt decision. He attacked with lightning speed again. The Azura saber directly greeted the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign's head. The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign retreated in panic. He waved his hand and the sky water banner flew in front of him again. Although the sky water banner flew out of his hand, it was not completely out of his control. The sky water banner blocked the Azura saber's attack again. The Azura became braver as the battle went on. He was like a warrior who did not know fatigue. He attacked one after another, making the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign unable to take it all in. Hirohito watched this scene in a daze. In his world view, the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign was already extremely powerful. He did not expect such a heaven-defying thing like the Azura to exist. Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. Even in his dreams, he did not expect that there would be such a pleasant surprise when he coincidentally took in the Azura. He did not know if the Dezang of Gugurio had considered this and deliberately taught him the Ksitigaba Sutra to suppress the Asura. If not for the Ksitigaba Sutra, he would not have been able to suppress the Asura. Naturally, he would not have been able to use the Asura to deal with Jiwuxiang and the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign was almost driven crazy. He kept retreating. This can't go on. I have to think of a way to counterattack. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign suddenly raised his head and looked at the black clouds in the sky. The black clouds were getting thicker and thicker. A vortex gradually formed in the sky. This vortex was so big that it almost covered the sky as far as the eye could see. The Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array is almost completed. I have to put in more effort. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign secretly circulated his energy and activated the array. In an instant, the seawater boiled and water vapor quickly rose. The sea level rapidly dropped. The huge island nation's land was covered in blood. Blood soared into the sky and flew into the dense black clouds, dyeing the black clouds with a layer of red. The lightning continued to fall, reaping one life after another. Screams resounded through the sky. The island nation had turned into a hell on earth. Suddenly, bang, a person exploded. Following that, people exploded one after another. They were not struck by lightning but exploded without any warning. This scene caused more panic for the others. Everyone wanted to escape, but there was nowhere to run. They could only watch each other turn into blobs of blood. A formless energy pervaded the world. This was the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array's power increasing. There was no need to kill people personally. The array's power killed people directly. Emperor Hirohito was originally dumbstruck as he watched the battle between the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign and the Asura. Suddenly, his body trembled. A formless energy rushed into his body from the outside and then rushed out from the inside. His body was like an inflated balloon that was about to be torn apart by this energy and explode. What's going on? Hirohito screamed in shock. Tang Zheng also felt this strange energy, but his cultivation was profound and could resist this energy. He did not feel it as deeply as Hirohito. Hirohito felt immense pain. He furrowed his brows, and his facial features twisted together like an abstract painting. Tang Zheng, save me. I beg you, save me. Hirohito pleaded weakly to Tang Zheng. What's wrong with you? I feel like I'm going to explode. Explode? Tang Zheng could not help but think of the feeling when the pure yang energy in his body exploded. It was as if the pure yang body wanted to break through the restraints of his body. But it was clear that Hirohito was not because of the pure yang energy, but because of other forces. He subconsciously looked at the 100 Transformations Star-Lord. Could it be that all of this was his doing? Seeing that Tang Zheng did not respond, Hirohito used all his strength to roar at the 100 Transformations Star-Lord. 100 Transformations Star-Lord, what did you do to me? The 100 Transformations Star-Lord sneered. Of course, this is the power of the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array. Do you think the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array that I modified is so simple? This is already a new array, and its power is completely different. Hirohito, slowly feel this power. Haha, you should feel honored to be the first batch of people to experience the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array that I modified. I don't want it. You crazy bastard, I shouldn't have trusted you back then. You destroyed me and my country. I'll kill you. Hirohito roared hysterically. However, this shout was pale and powerless. To the 100 Transformations Star-Lord, it did not have any deterrent effect. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. He did not see the scene in other parts of the island nation, and he did not know that countless people were dying rapidly to hasten the success of the array. But he already had an extremely strong sense of unease. He shouted to stop him, 100 Transformations Star-Lord, stop right now. The array has already been activated, and it is impossible to stop. Tang Zheng, enjoy the power of the array. But don't worry, with your cultivation, you will not be affected much by the array. You will be honored to see the array succeed and the return of the demons. Bang! As soon as he finished speaking, a scream rang out, but it stopped abruptly. Then, there was an explosion. Emperor Hirohito's body exploded, turning into flesh and blood that scattered with the wind. The emperor of a country couldn't even withstand a single blow from the formation. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. He wanted to kill Hirohito, but he never thought that Hirohito would end up like this. His eyes turned cold, and his killing intent surged. Since Hirohito could not escape the fate of exploding, then it would be even more difficult for the rest of the island nation to escape. Maybe they were already dead. The 100 Transformations Star-Lord said that he would use the lives of more than 100 million people in the island nation to activate the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array. It seemed that he really did it, and it succeeded. The cruelty of the 100 Transformations Star-Lord had already exceeded Tang Zheng's bottom line. Although he hated the island nation, he still did not have such a vicious mind to kill everyone in the country. But the 100 Transformations Star-Lord did it without any hesitation. He seemed to have lost the feelings and sympathy that a normal human should have. 100 Transformations Star-Lord, you should not exist in this world. Tang Zheng roared. He could not help but regret that he had unintentionally entered Buzhou Mountain and released this demon. The 100 Transformations Star-Lord laughed. What right do you have to judge me? Let me tell you, the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array has been successfully activated. Boom. A loud sound came from the sky, and the dark clouds underwent a huge change. The vortex in the middle of the dark clouds was completely formed, and it kept spinning. In the end, it turned into a big hole, and there seemed to be many figures appearing in the big hole. Tang Zheng immediately recalled the scene when the Blood Clan activated the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array at the peak of the Heavenly Mountain. It was just that the current Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array was even more powerful, which also meant that more demon clans were about to return. Tang Zheng's face became very ugly. He wanted to stop all of this, but he was powerless and could not do anything. The 100 Transformations Star-Lord fought as he retreated. He looked up at the sky from time to time, and his eyes were full of a smile. He was not unfamiliar with this scene. Last time, the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array only allowed a small number of demons to return. They did not make a splash in this world at all, and then they were wiped out by Tang Zheng and his people. This time, it was different. The return of a large number of demons could not be stopped by any force, not even Tang Zheng and the Empyrean Fairy. When the time came, as long as the 100 Transformations Star-Lord gave the order, who could be his opponent? Chapter 11-12. Figures flickered in the hole in the sky, releasing an extremely terrifying aura. Pinnacle novel. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning lit up, and the scene in the hole became clear. It was as if heavenly soldiers and generals had descended from the sky. Seeing this scene, Tang Zheng was so shocked that his jaw almost dropped. There was nothing he could do. The demons were finally returning. He had thought of this before, but he did not expect it to come so early and in such a way. He turned his gaze and glared at the 100 Transformations Star-Lord. This crazy guy was going to completely destroy this world. Tang Zheng roared and attacked the 100 Change Star Sovereign without any regard for his own safety. Whoosh! The shooting sun arrow turned into a stream of light and flew toward 100 Faces. 100 Faces was already forced to retreat by Shura. The shooting sun arrow was so fast and accurate that he did not have enough time to defend himself. Fart! The shooting sun arrow hit one of his legs. With a loud explosion, half of his leg exploded and turned into a pile of minced meat that flew in all directions. Ah! A miserable scream resounded through the sky. Not even in his dreams would the 100 Faces Star Sovereign have thought that he would actually be hit by Tang Zheng. He had never placed Tang Zheng in his eyes, and had placed almost all of his attention on the Azura. After all, Shura was too powerful. If he was not careful, he would fall into Shura's trap. He never thought that Tang Zheng would almost lose his mind and launch an attack without any regard for his own safety. The shooting sun arrow hit him with lightning speed. 100 Faces could not do anything. He managed to avoid being hit in his vitals, but his left leg could not escape misfortune. Blood flowed out, and the muscles on his face twisted. His originally helpless and tender face was now filled with viciousness. He stared straight at Tang Zheng and gritted his teeth. He wanted nothing more than to skin him alive. Tang Zheng, I will tear you to pieces, grind your bones to dust, and scatter your soul. 100 Faces was hysterical. He used almost all of his strength to roar. His voice was like a great bell, but it was also like rolling thunder exploding in the sky. Then, it continuously spread in all directions. Only his angry roar was left in the world. The seawater soared into the sky, and thousands of water pillars surrounded him like towering trees. Seeing this terrifying scene, Tang Zheng did not feel fear. He was only regretful that Multiform Star Sovereign had managed to avoid being hit in his vitals, only injuring one of his legs. The crippled leg of the 100 Transformations Starlord was a very serious injury to him. More importantly, it was a blow to his spirit and self-esteem. In ancient times, even if he broke Mount Buzhou, he was only imprisoned. Although his body could not escape punishment, he did not lose an arm or a leg. This time, however, one of his legs had been crippled by Tang Zheng's arrow. This blow could be imagined, and the humiliation could only be deeply felt by the person involved. Tang Zheng was unmoved by the 100 Transformations Starlord's threatening roar. He and the 100 Transformations Starlord had long been mortal enemies, so why would he be afraid of his threats? When the Shura smelled the blood of the 100 Transformations Starlord, his eyes flashed. The murderous aura became denser, and the blood stimulated his killing intent. The Shura roared, and the Shura saber slashed at the 100 Transformations Starlord again. Previously, the 100 Transformations Starlord could dodge the Shura's attack, but this time, he was severely injured, and his strength was obviously not enough. Fart! The Shura saber cut a long wound on his chest, and blood flowed out. The blood splattered all over his face, making him look even more ferocious and terrifying. The 100 Transformations Starlord was scared out of his wits. He could not care less about the bleeding wound, and retreated pathetically. The Shura was ready to give chase, but just as he took a big step, he suddenly stopped. He looked up at the sky and let out a deafening roar at the whirlpool. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, figures flew down from the whirlpool, and the sky seemed to be raining. However, it was not rain, but people. The evil aura on these people was awe-inspiring. Although they were far away, Tang Zheng could feel it clearly. Suddenly, his expression changed. The demons had really returned. He had tried his best to stop them, but because of the 100 Transformations Starlord's stubbornness, it was all for naught. There were too many demons descending from the sky. There were hundreds, thousands, and finally, there were too many to count. Tang Zheng was dazzled. Roar! The Shura roared angrily and soared into the sky. He actually went to meet the demons, wanting to attack them. The Shura was a person who only knew how to kill. Whether the other party was the 100 Transformations Starlord, the demons, or how many there were, he was fearless. He only knew how to kill. When Tang Zheng saw this, he was shocked. The Shura was powerful, but with so many demons, there was no guarantee that there were no powerful figures among them. Moreover, with so many people, it was possible that ants would eat an elephant. Of course, he could not let the Shura take this risk. Come back! He shouted and soared into the sky, blocking the Shura's path. The Shura saber flashed with a cold light and directly slashed at Tang Zheng, who was blocking the way. The 100 Transformations Starlord looked at this scene in shock. What was going on? Why would the Shura attack Tang Zheng? He did not know the nature of the Shura, so naturally, he did not know that the Shura was only a killing machine and was not Tang Zheng's subordinate. Tang Zheng was familiar with this. He chanted the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Golden Sanskrit characters flew out from his mouth and landed on the Shura's body. The Shura instantly quieted down. Tang Zheng chanted the Ksitigarbha Sutra every day. His understanding and comprehension of the Ksitigarbha Sutra was extraordinary. Therefore, his chanting of the Ksitigarbha Sutra was very effective in suppressing the Shura. Once the Ksitigarbha Sutra was used, the Shura saber was suspended in the air. It was not a threat to him at all. Come in! Tang Zheng roared, and the Shura was kept back into Sumeru world. Looking up, the sky was filled with densely packed figures of the demon clan, and many of them were emitting a terrifying aura. Without a doubt, they were experts. Tang Zheng had more than enough, but not enough strength. When the demons had just returned, they had passed through 2 spaces. Originally, they were at their weakest. This was the best time to kill them. However, there were too many demons. It was not something that he could contend against alone. Therefore, he could only look at the sea and sigh regretfully. Then, he looked deeply at the 100 Transformations Star-Lord. The 100 Transformations Star-Lord's face was full of malevolence. It was hair-raising. He hid far away from Tang Zheng and did not charge forward to fight to the death with him. Because, the 2 losses he had suffered were not small. He could not even protect himself, so how could he cause any substantial harm to Tang Zheng? Tang Zheng snorted coldly. Taking advantage of the fact that the demons had not landed on the ground, he turned and left. Stop! The 100 Transformations Star-Lord shouted to stop him. However, it was of no use. He could not stop Tang Zheng at all. He could only watch as Tang Zheng flew into the sea and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The 100 Transformations Star-Lord roared unwillingly. A series of explosions rang out in the sea. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. When the demons landed on the ground, they naturally saw the 100 Transformations Star-Lord. To the demons, the 100 Transformations Star-Lord was not a stranger. Previously, when he activated the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array, he had already established some kind of connection with the demons. Although it was only a short communication, and after the array lost its effect, both parties were cut off. However, that little bit of communication was enough. The 100 Transformations Star-Lord's face was pale. He had already circulated his energy to stop the bleeding and pain. However, his appearance of standing on one leg was very comical. His original dignity was greatly reduced. He flew lightly towards the other party. Finally, he stopped in front of everyone. There were still demons descending from the sky. However, the whirlpool was spinning slower and slower. The whirlpool was shrinking bit by bit. The effect of the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array was rapidly disappearing. Whoosh! Finally, the whirlpool disappeared. There were no more demons descending from the sky. Everything returned to calm. The dark clouds were also gradually dispersing. Sunlight shone down from the sky, penetrating the sparse clouds and shining on the ground. The ground was flowing with blood. It was a complete mess. Buildings had been struck by lightning and collapsed into ruins. Some had turned into a sea of flames. There were still many corpses and flesh on the ground. This was the most terrifying scene. Just one look was enough to make people vomit their dinner from the previous night. Many demons saw this scene and their faces became extremely unnatural. They became extremely pale. Many of them even bent over and vomited. The 100 Transformations Star-Lord's expression was normal. None of this caused a ripple in his heart. He coldly looked at the demons that were gathering from all directions. This is the human world. We are finally back. It has been a few hundred years. I never thought that we could actually return. There was no lack of people in the crowd who had lived for over 100 years. They were also some of the cultivators who had been expelled back then. When they saw this land again, they were naturally filled with emotions. Many people took in a deep breath of air. Although the air was filled with a strong smell of blood, they kept praising it, as if they were enjoying the most wonderful thing in time. They said intoxicatedly, "This is the smell of home." Yeah, compared to the heavens beyond, this is simply like a fairyland. That's right. I don't want to stay in that damned outer sky for another day. Every day is torture. This is our world. The others agreed in deep agreement. Haha, back then, Nu Urha and that group of martial warriors used tricks to expel us. Now, it's time for them to pay the price. Right, Nu Urha made us pay such a painful price. After being tortured for so many years, it's time to return it with interest. The crowd was filled with anger. The aura of slaughter quickly filled the air, drowning the crowd in this monstrous killing intent. Looking at the group of demons who were discussing animatedly, the 100 Transformation Star-Lord did not say a word. His eyes were calm and cold as he tried his best to maintain his composure. Suddenly, the noisy crowd quieted down. It was completely silent, deathly silent. It didn't even take a second for the clamor to turn into deathly silence. This strange change was creepy, and it wasn't hard to realize that something must have happened. The 100 transformations Star-Lord's pupils constricted as he narrowed his eyes and stared at the dense crowd. Suddenly, the crowd moved. Like a tide, they automatically parted to the sides. They moved in unison, giving off a silent sense of pressure. Chapter 11:13. This man had a strong back and a strong waist. His broad chest was like a rock. The muscles on his arms were strong and the veins were prominent. They were like pythons. Percent. His thick eyebrows were like heavy swords. When he raised them slightly, they emitted sword will and pressure. It made people feel like they were being pressed by a huge rock. His eyes were like lightning. He looked like he had been through hundreds of battles. The devils looked at him with eyes full of awe. They stood solemnly and bowed their heads deeply. This man was the leader of the demons. People called him Saint King. 100 Faces' pupils shrank. He stared at Saint King. He guessed that he must be a big shot. As for who he was, he did not know. Saint King strode towards 100 Faces. Every time his feet landed, there was no sound. However, the ground cracked. The cracks were like dense spider webs. They spread in all directions. His huge body and 100 Faces' childlike appearance formed a huge contrast. It was like a giant and a dwarf. They were two extremes. The huge shadow and aura shrouded 100 Faces. 100 Faces' expression was normal. However, his heart was in turmoil. He realized that he had misjudged the situation. Although the devil who returned last time had a high cultivation base, there was a world of difference between him and the devil. This gave him the illusion that all the devils in the outer heavens were the same. They were no match for him. Therefore, he had great confidence in ruling over the demons. However, facing this person, he realized that he could not see through him. Without a doubt, this person's cultivation was higher than his. What was going on? Could it be that he had painstakingly summoned a ferocious tiger instead of a docile kitten in the end? The tiger was out of the cage. It was unstoppable. Moreover, the 100 transformations Star-Lord was heavily injured. How could he possibly resist a saint? His heart was filled with mixed feelings. However, he did not show any fear. That was not his style. He looked at him as usual. He waited for him to break the silence. "Are you the one who activated the Mountain River blood sacrifice array?" The sage finally opened his mouth. His voice was like a great bell, piercing the ears like thunder. 100 Faces nodded. "Of course. Who else could it be other than me? The demons will remember this in their hearts. Submitting to me is the best way to show your gratitude." Although he knew that the other party was strong, the 100 Change Star Sovereign's confidence was not just empty words. He still continued to speak as he pleased. "Submit." Saint King raised his eyebrows. It was as if a heavy sword had been raised, ready to fall down and hurt someone at any moment. "Yes." The 100 Change Star Sovereign stood proudly without fear. Saint King's eyes wandered around 100 transformations Star-Lord's body. His lightning-like gaze made one's hair stand on end. When his gaze landed on 100 transformations Star-Lord's broken leg and the wound on his chest, his expression was thought-provoking. The 100 Change Star Sovereign felt as if he had been greatly insulted. Of course, he understood what this gaze meant. It was obvious that this person did not put him in his eyes. The 100 Change Star Sovereign said unhappily, "I let you demons return. As a reward, you should submit to me." The mockery in Saint King's eyes became more and more obvious. He asked, "What right do you have to say that? Our demon race is a race that fights against the heavens and the earth. We will never humiliate anyone, right?" "Yes." The answer resounded through the heavens and earth. All the demons looked at the 100 Change Star Sovereign with unkind eyes. The mockery in their eyes could not be more obvious. "You are all ungrateful." The 100 Change Star Sovereign's expression changed slightly. "Who are you? Why are you so confident?" Saint King asked. The 100 Change Star Sovereign. "Oh, it's you?" Saint King raised his eyebrows and sized up the 100 Change Star Sovereign. Obviously, He had heard of the 100 Change Star Sovereign's name. I heard that you were imprisoned in Mount Bujo. Later on, Mount Bujo disappeared, and no one could find you. Now it seems that you are far from the legendary 100 Change Star Sovereign. I really suspect that you broke Mount Bujo. You dare to suspect this? The 100 Change Star Sovereign was furious. Breaking Mount Bujo and severing the connection with the heavens beyond was the thing that he was most proud of. He did not expect to be suspected by Saint King. If this could be tolerated, what else could he do? Crack, crack. He clenched his fists so hard that his veins popped out. He could not wait to rush up and punch the other party. But in the end, he held himself back. Saint King said coldly, I have to say that this was a very wise move. At least it preserved the peace of this world for tens of thousands of years. The change in topic confused the 100 Change Star Sovereign. He looked at the other party blankly and asked, What do you mean? I said that breaking Mount Bujo was a magnificent feat. The 100 Change Star Sovereign was stunned. Back then, this move of his was severely criticized. But now, it was praised as a magnificent feat. He could not help but be in a daze. He did not know what the other party meant. Why do you say that? This move prevented this world from being invaded or even destroyed. Invaded? Destroyed? The 100 Change Star Sovereign was even more confused. The other party sighed and said, The heavens beyond is not like many people think it is. It is an extremely dangerous place. Mount Bujo is a passage that connects two worlds. If Mount Bujo was not broken, the people from the heavens beyond could follow the clues and reach this world. This world would have changed owners or even been destroyed. Is that so? 100 Change Star Monarch finally understood. It turned out that Sky Beyond Sky was a very dangerous place. His act of crashing into the mountain had severed the connection between the two worlds. Thus, it had also severed the way from Sky Beyond Sky to this world. The 100 Change Star Sovereign smiled and said, Since that is the case, you should thank me even more. We thank you, but it does not mean that we will submit to you. If you are in trouble or danger in the future, we are willing to lend a helping hand as a way of thanking you. You. The 100 Change Star Sovereign's eyes turned cold. He was furious. He had a higher goal. It was not something that could be brushed off with a helping hand. You are ungrateful. The sage declined to comment as he stared fixedly at the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign's wound, saying, There are no longer any cultivators in this world. With your cultivation, it's enough to rule this world. Who could actually harm you? The demon race did not understand the current situation of this world. Of course, they did not know that there were many powerful cultivators. That was why there was such a problem. The 100 Change Star Sovereign's eyes flashed with anger. He was injured by Tang Zheng. How could he spread the news? He snorted heavily and said, Your words are too childish. You don't understand this world at all. This is not the world when you were expelled. There are still cultivators in this world and they are very powerful. The strongest is in the demigod realm. Also, normal humans are not as weak as they were in the ancient times. Especially those in power, they are very powerful. Saint King snorted and said with disdain, What power do those in power have? No matter if it is the ruler of a country or the people, they are all weak in front of us. We can easily get rid of them. The 100 Change Star Sovereign snorted. Although he did not say anything, his meaning was obvious. He thought that the other party was just bragging. As for the cultivators, all the cultivators in this world have been expelled. Who else can reach the demigod realm? Saint King said in disbelief. Haha, you cultivators have been expelled. But there is no lack of fish that escaped the net in this world. You will know how powerful they are when you meet them in the future. The 100 Change Star Sovereign deliberately boasted about the strength of Tang Zheng and the others in order to defend himself. Only by boasting about Tang Zheng and the others could he avoid being judged as useless by the other party. The other party finally frowned and was very confused. He looked at the 100 Change Star Sovereign with shining eyes, as if he wanted to distinguish the truth in his words. But how could the 100 Change Star Sovereign be so easily seen through? Even if the other party looked at him for a long time, he still could not see the truth. Who are these people? Tang Zheng, Empyrean Fairy, Tian Chanzi. The people you sent back last time were killed by them. The 100 Change Star Sovereign deliberately drew hatred for Tang Zheng. What, all the people of the demonic race are dead? Saint King was shocked. Yes, they were all killed by Tang Zheng and the others. Otherwise, why would I spend so much time to summon the main forces of the demonic race back? The 100 Change Star Sovereign felt bitter in his heart. If the demonic race had not been wiped out, why would he summon the main forces of the demonic race? It was because the demonic race was easier to control, and it would be easier for him to achieve his ambitions. The demonic race was silent. Their feelings about the death of their compatriots could be imagined. The temperature suddenly dropped to the freezing point, and the atmosphere became more and more oppressive. There was no wind, and even the air seemed to have stopped flowing. Saint King finally broke the silence and turned his attention to the Empyrean Fairy. I have heard of the name Empyrean Fairy. Is she the daughter of the Emperor of Heaven? Didn't she die in the end when she assisted Emperor Qin to unify the 6 kingdoms? The Empyrean Fairy's background was not simple, and it was not surprising that the demonic race had heard of her. However, they were curious as to why the Empyrean Fairy could come back from the dead. The 100 Change Star Sovereign shook his head suspiciously. When he was active, the Emperor of Heaven had not yet appeared. Naturally, he did not know about the Empyrean Fairy and the Emperor of Heaven, so he could not answer. Tian Chanzi? Is he the Tian Chanzi from Kingshuman? Didn't they say that he disappeared 1,000 years ago? Someone in the crowd muttered softly. Kingshuman? That small sect that was almost destroyed. Kingshuman was a big sect 1,000 years ago, but it became weaker and weaker with each generation. It even struggled to survive in the Outland. After listening to this conversation, Saint King had a rough idea. He knew Kingshuman better than anyone else. There were many outstanding powerhouses in this sect. Unfortunately, the world changed, and even the strongest sect would fall one day. Is this Tian Chanzi really from Kingshuman? Saint King asked the 100 Change Star Sovereign. The 100 Change Star Sovereign pondered for a moment and said, it should be him. You will understand everything when you see him. Who is this Tang Zheng? Chapter 11:14. Saint King frowned and asked suspiciously, Tang Zheng's cultivation is not high, how can he be their core? Because he has the 9 Yang Saint body, a celestial. 100 Change Star Lord said without hesitation. He had no intention of protecting Tang Zheng's secret. Celestial? The sage was greatly shocked, and was unable to conceal the strange expression on his face. However, the expressions of many demons were as usual, and did not change because of the 3 words celestial. Not everyone knew about the celestial. The celestial had disappeared for so long that they were almost forgotten. Those who knew the inside story were the absolute powerhouses with high positions. Saint King naturally knew. He knew that the ancestor of the demon race, Kai Yu, was a celestial. His glory was not passed down by the later generations. But since then, the demon race did not have a celestial. Because of this, the demon race did not rise again. They were suppressed by the righteous path for a long time. Hearing that Tang Zheng was a celestial, Saint King's heart became excited. Could this be the will of the heavens? The demon race returned, and the celestial reappeared. Could it be that the demon race was destined to rise again? Moreover, there was no righteous path in this world. They were the only rulers. Even if there was no celestial, it would be difficult for them to meet a worthy opponent. Of course, if there was a celestial, it would be a different scene. Saint King naturally would not reject such a good thing. The 100 Transformations Star Lord did not know what the sage was thinking. Seeing that the other party seemed to be very interested, he hurriedly added, if Tang Zheng is not eliminated, he will definitely become a big problem in the future. This is my experience, a lesson learned. The sage monarch's expression became more and more thought-provoking, making it difficult for others to see through him. There was even a trace of an imperceptible smile in his eyes. No wonder the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign was defeated time and time again. His opponent was a celestial. Then everything can be explained. How could a celestial be so casually dealt with by anyone? Even if a celestial was very weak. 100 Change Star Lord did not know that he had shot himself in the foot. Instead, it made Saint King look at Tang Zheng in a new light. Where is Tang Zheng? Saint King asked. His. Before the 100 Transformations Star-Lord could finish his sentence, a loud voice suddenly sounded from afar. I'm here. Tang Zheng took this opportunity to escape. He turned his head to look at the dumpling-like demons in the sky. His mind shook as he muttered to himself, this is big trouble. I have to go back and discuss countermeasures with the others. When the demons returned, he and the people around him would definitely be the first to be affected. After all, he was irreconcilable with the demon race. They had fought many times, and with the 100 Faces Star Sovereign fanning the flames, the result was obvious. Young man, the demon clan is powerful. You must think of a way to deal with them. Otherwise, there will be endless troubles. The inner demons exhorted. They were closely related to Tang Zheng. They were bound together for good or ill. Naturally, they did not want anything to happen to him. Heart Demon, do you have any ideas? Tang Zheng asked curiously as he tried any medicine he could think of. The inner demon stammered, no matter how powerful I am, I won't be able to help you. After all, I'm in your body, and my strength is restricted. Otherwise, I would definitely be able to make this group of demons never return. Tang Zheng curled his lips. If the inner demons were to be released, he would be the first to suffer. After all, the inner demons had suffered a lot in front of him. Moreover, the inner demons and Kai Yu were parasitized in his body. He did not know how to release them. Although I don't have a way, Kai Yu definitely has a way. The demon clan evolved from the Jolie tribe. Therefore, Kai Yu is their ancestor. If he says something, maybe the conflict can be resolved. The inner demons suggested. Tang Zheng moved his head and suddenly realized, that's right. How could I forget about Kai Yu? Kai Yu, do you have any ideas? Kai Yu did not say a word. The inner demons could not stand it and ridiculed, Kai Yu, you've been silent for so long. Have you become mute? Tang Zheng also suddenly realized that Kai Yu was a little abnormal. It seemed that ever since the Mountain River blood sacrifice array was activated, he had not said a word. No one could guess his thoughts. The two of them shouted a few times, but Kai Yu did not respond. This made the two of them mutter in their hearts and become suspicious. Inner demons, what's wrong with him? The inner demons muttered, he can't be thinking of some bad idea, right? His words came true. The War Soul Sword trembled violently and suddenly changed directions. It carried Tang Zheng and flew in the direction of the 100 Faces Star-Lord. What's going on? Tang Zheng cried out in alarm. War Soul Sword, what are you doing? Tang Zheng moved his mind, trying to communicate with the sword spirit, but discovered that there was no reply at all. He had lost contact with the sword spirit. One had to know that ever since the War Soul Sword obtained the artifact Spirit Sword Soul, he could communicate with the War Soul Sword at any time, and control the War Soul Sword could be said to be as easy as ordering an arm. However, there was no reply at this time. This was extremely abnormal. Could it be that the War Soul Sword had been severely injured just now, so there was a problem? No. He immediately rejected this idea. Although the War Soul Sword was injured, it was not that serious. There must be something fishy going on. Kai Yu, are you playing tricks? The inner demons had an idea and asked loudly. Tang Zheng's head turned cold. Kai Yu, could it be that this was his doing? He was the master of the War Soul Sword. How could Kai Yu control the War Soul Sword? Back then in the Changbai Mountain sinkhole, Kai Yu controlled my body to subdue the War Soul Sword. Could it be that he had done something at that time, but I had never discovered it? Now that Kai Yu suddenly attacked, he controlled the War Soul Sword? Tang Zheng was shocked by his own thoughts. Although he knew that Kai Yu had always harbored ill intentions towards him and was not one of his people, he never thought that he would hide it so deeply. But at this time, Kai Yu suddenly attacked. What was his intention? Demon clan. Without thinking too much, Tang Zheng guessed the answer. It was definitely the return of the demon clan's army, causing Kai Yu to finally take the risk and suddenly attack. He definitely had a plan, and the reason why he had been silent the entire time was definitely because he was silently brewing. However, he and the inner demons did not discover Caillou's wild ambition. The inner demons also thought of this and became flustered and exasperated. Caillou, you shameless guy, do you not want to live by doing this? When Caillou attacked, the inner demons and Tang Jing naturally would not sit idly by. The three sides fought fiercely, fighting to the death. In the end, it was still unknown who would win. But no matter who won in the end, the fragile balance in front of them would be completely broken. Everything was filled with unknown variables. The inner demons and Tang Zheng gnashed their teeth in hatred towards Caillou, but the other party did not respond at all. Even if the two of them jumped up and cursed, it was useless. Inner demons, what can we do? Tang Zheng asked with an ashen face as he watched the war soul sword fly towards the demon clan. He could not abandon the war soul sword, jump into the sea, and escape alone. The war soul sword was too important to him. It had almost become a part of his life, helping him defeat countless enemies. How could he abandon the war soul sword? He desperately urged his power, trying to communicate with the war soul sword, but in the end, it proved that everything was in vain. Caillou, if you are heartless, I will not be righteous. I am not someone who can be trampled on. At worst, I will fight to the death. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with a fierce light, and with a fierce expression, he directly used his power to absorb Caillou's heart's blood. This was Caillou's Achilles' heel. Hiss hiss. Caillou's heart's blood was immediately sucked out of Caillou's heart, quickly flowing towards the Zifu Yuanying and fusing into the Yuanying. Yuanying's light shone brightly, the purple light was mysterious and noble. The meridians in Yuanying's body gradually condensed, especially the few main meridians that appeared one by one. It was as if a river had appeared on a continent, immediately becoming full of vitality. Yuanying's facial features also became clearer, no different from Tang Zheng's. Every organ and tissue, from the inside to the outside, and from the outside to the inside, condensed and formed. Seeing this scene, Tang Zheng was not pleasantly surprised. Although he knew that his cultivation was increasing and that the energy of Caillou's heart's blood was extraordinary, his body would lose balance and even lose control. All of this was filled with unknown dangers. However, he did not retreat. He had already been forced into a desperate situation by Caillou. If he took a step back, it would be a bottomless abyss. He would be completely possessed and his soul would scatter. He could accept failure, but he would not accept failure that he had never worked hard to achieve. Even if it was death, as long as he had worked hard, fought for it, and done his best, even if he lost, it would still be glorious. He desperately absorbed Caillou's heart's blood, and the true qi in his body advanced by leaps and bounds. Even the pure yang energy became restless, constantly running around in his meridians. It was a mess. It was a mess this time. Tang Zheng's cheeks were sometimes flushed red like burning charcoal, and sometimes his face was deathly white like layers of snow. It was constantly changing, and his entire body was emitting a strange aura. The inner demon sighed, Caillou, you've really killed me. Humph, no matter what your plan is, I will never let you succeed. Caillou and Caillou were old rivals, so how could they watch him do this indifferently? Therefore, the inner demons immediately launched an attack. The consciousness of the inner demons extended, enveloping Caillou's heart. A strange power instantly spread out. Caillou's heart thumped fiercely, as if it was going to jump out of Tang Zheng's chest. The violent heartbeat caused the blood in Tang Zheng's limbs and bones to quickly gather towards his heart. His entire body became unable to move, and he could only let the war soul sword carry him towards the demon clan. However, Tang Zheng's consciousness was able to move freely. The battle this time was a battle of consciousness between the three of them. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, their consciousness began to fight. These three consciousnesses were not in Tang Zheng's mind, but gathered in Caillou's heart. In an instant, the scene in front of him changed. Tang Zheng found himself in a blood-red world, a world that he had never seen before. Not far away stood a middle-aged man. He had the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear. He had a wide face and big ears. He was awe-inspiring. Suddenly, a person appeared. This person had a handsome face, and was an elegant young master. However, his face had a gloomy and cold aura, giving people a very uncomfortable feeling. Chapter 11:15. This was the first time that Tang Zheng had seen these two people, but he had a feeling that he knew them. The tall and sturdy one was Kai Yu, and the pale and beardless one was the inner demons. This feeling was extremely mysterious, but when he saw them, his heart suddenly had this feeling. Kai Yu, inner demons. Tang Zheng subconsciously blurted out. The two of them turned their heads to look at Tang Zheng, laughing dryly. Kai Yu's voice sounded, and sure enough, it came from the tall and sturdy man's mouth. Tang Zheng, you actually recognized me. Tang Zheng's eyebrows jumped, looking at the other person in disbelief. This person was actually Kai Yu. How could he appear so vividly in front of him? This thought lingered, but he couldn't find an answer. Young man, this is the core of Kai Yu's heart. Only divine sense can enter. We only have divine sense right now. The other person explained. It was clearly the voice of the inner demons. Tang Zheng's eyebrows were tightly knit, his eyes filled with a dignified look. His own divine sense had entered this side of the world, but he was completely unable to predict what would happen. Turning his gaze, he locked onto Kai Yu and asked, Kai Yu, what are you trying to do by controlling War Soul? Kai Yu laughed loudly, his thick eyebrows and big eyes were quite dignified. It was difficult to hide his confidence and arrogance. He said complacently, of course it's to take back everything that belongs to me. Everything that belongs to you? What do you have? Tang Zheng said disdainfully. Kai Yu stared at him. I want to regain my freedom. Do you understand? You want to take over my body? Tang Zheng was shocked. Kai Yu's wolfish ambition had not disappeared. When the inner demons heard this, he flew into a rage. Kai Yu, you are truly deranged. I finally understand why you chose this time. You want to use the demons that fell from the sky to achieve this goal, right? Since it has come to this, I don't want to lie to you. Inner demons, you are right. You and I have been enemies for many years. We have been fighting for so long. Today we will finally put an end to it. Kai Yu said solemnly. The inner demons disdainfully snorted. Kai Yu, you think too much. Back then you and the Yellow Emperor couldn't kill me. Now you think you can kill me? Times have changed. You are no longer the inner demons of the past. Moreover, this brat's inner demons have been expelled. Once I take control of his body, I can use this opportunity to imprison you in this body forever. When that time comes, what awaits you will be a prison that will never see the light of day. What can you do? Kai Yu said jokingly. The inner demon's face suddenly changed, clenching his teeth. It was a long time before he burst out a sentence. Kai Yu, you are so cunning, so ruthless. Haha, you and I are life and death enemies. To be kind to you is to be cruel to myself. Do you think I am that stupid? I can't kill you, but I can restrict your freedom forever. This feeling must not be good, right? Kai Yu's eyes shone brightly. When Tang Zheng heard these words, he was infuriated. He was the owner of this body, yet he was being ignored in such a blatant manner. You want to take over my body? Did you ask for my permission? Tang Zheng angrily shouted in dissatisfaction. Kai Yu rolled his eyes in disdain and said, Tang Zheng, I know you are absorbing the heart's blood. This can indeed weaken me and increase your cultivation, but once I take control of this body, increasing your cultivation will instead be beneficial. You can do whatever you want to absorb the energy of the heart's blood. Are you not afraid that I will absorb your heart's blood? Tang Zheng was puzzled. In the past Kai Yu was very afraid that he would absorb Kai Yu's heart's blood. He was afraid that his strength would be weakened, and then the inner demons would gain the upper hand. I have carefully prepared for this for so long. How can a little fear make me give up halfway? Moreover, in such a short time, it is impossible for you to absorb all of my heart's blood. As long as the heart's blood does not dry up, then I can take over your body. Kai Yu said ruthlessly. Tang Zheng was speechless. The inner demons were not to be outdone and said, Kai Yu, do you really think I don't exist? Let me tell you, as long as I am here, your evil plan will not succeed. Humph, then let's see if you have the ability to stop me. Kai Yu was not afraid in the slightest. The inner demon's face was filled with anger, his figure flashed, and he pounced towards Kai Yu. Kai Yu stamped his foot, the space seemed to tremble, the empty space around him rippling. Then, Kaiyu was like a ferocious tiger released from its cage, his huge fist directly attacking the inner demons. The two of them were illusions of divine sense. They attacked each other without magic weapons or even spells, only the most primitive attacks of fists to flesh. The inner demons was indeed very strong, but in terms of physical strength, he was not Kaiyu's opponent at all, so when the two of them fought, their fists and feet were added together, their figures flying around, dazzling the eyes. Tang Zheng watched the battle from the side. He could see the clues. Kaiyu obviously had the upper hand. If this continued, then the inner demons would be in trouble. Tang Zheng of course did not have a good impression of the inner demons. The inner demons did not attack this time, but it could not be denied that he also had the intention to attack, but perhaps the time was not right for him. If the inner demons had such a heaven-sent opportunity like Kaiyu, then they would certainly attack without restraint, and then take over Tang Zheng's body. There was little difference between the two of them with wild ambitions. However, now that Chio's power was great, he had the advantage of time and place. If he fought to the death and really occupied Tang Zheng's body, then with his identity, he would definitely be able to summon the demon clan and unify this world. Too many people would be in danger, especially Tang Zheng's family and friends, who would bear the brunt of it. Of course, he could not sit back and do nothing, so even if he knew the inner demon's evil intentions, he had to stand on the inner demon's side this time and join forces to fight against Kaiyu. Whoosh! Tang Zheng's feet shook, and in a flash, he was behind Kaiyu, punching at Kaiyu's back. Kaiyu seemed to have eyes on the back of his head. He did not need to look back to know that Tang Zheng was coming to attack. With a wave of his hand, his arm was like a cannonball, fiercely swinging back, smashing into Tang Zheng's fist. Bang! Tang Zheng's arms shook, and the intense pain eroded his nerves, causing him to cry out in alarm. He did not expect Kaiyu's fighting strength to be so strong. A casual swing of his fist was so powerful that he could not even take one move. The horror in his eyes could not be concealed. Tang Zheng stared straight at Kaiyu's back with his eyes wide open. Kaiyu did not even turn his head after throwing out this punch. Obviously, he was very confident in this move, or it could be said that he did not take Tang Zheng seriously at all. Tang Zheng looked at the inner demons again, and the look in his eyes changed. The inner demons seemed to be forced back by Kaiyu, but after all, they still had the strength to fight. Although they looked battered and exhausted, in fact, their fighting strength was much higher than Tang Zheng's. Only then did Tang Zheng understand that he was blind. Although the inner demons were not outstanding in terms of physical fighting strength, after all, their foundation was there, and Tang Zheng could not catch up. However, Tang Zheng's biggest advantage was that he knew that there was a tiger in the mountain, but he still went to the tiger's mountain. He had already realized the gap between his strength and his opponent's, but he did not admit defeat, nor did he give up. Like a flash of lightning across the sky, he jumped up again and rushed toward Kaiyu. Kaiyu's lips curled into a disdainful sneer. "Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Kaiyu forced the inner demons back with one move, then turned around abruptly. His round eyes were like the eyes of a fierce beast, emitting a fierce light that made people shudder. But Tang Zheng persevered. With a low roar, he punched out with both fists towards Kaiyu. Kaiyu also threw out both fists, like an angry dragon rising out of the sea, setting off stormy waves. Bang! Bang! Two loud sounds rang out, and Tang Zheng let out a heart-wrenching scream. He watched as his arms were destroyed, his meridians shattered, his flesh and blood separated, revealing the eerie white bones. Then with a few cracking sounds, the white bones broke, and finally turned into a wisp of smoke and disappeared without a trace. He became a cripple, losing both of his arms. The intense pain made Tang Zheng's eyes bloodshot, and his eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. In particular, the mental stimulation was so great that he almost collapsed. He lost his mind, and it seemed that his whole body was about to fall apart. Kaiyu looked at this scene and laughed complacently. "Tang Zheng, you overestimate yourself. In Kaiyu's heart, how can you be my opponent? Moreover, I was at the peak of the Mahayana realm back then. How can a little Yuaniing like you compare to me?" Tang Zheng clenched his teeth, resisting the piercing pain, and said, "Kaiyu, do you think this can make me submit? No way. Mph, You don't know what's good for you. I'll deal with the inner demons first, and then I'll deal with you. Caillou roared, and then fiercely attacked the inner demons. In an instant, figures flew, and the two of them fought fiercely. Tang Zheng watched this scene with his eyes wide open, seemingly powerless. Although his arms were destroyed, this was only his divine sense. His physical body was not destroyed. However, in reality, his entire body was covered in cold sweat, and the pain was accurately transmitted to every part of his body. This kind of pain from the divine sense was even more intense than a real knife or spear wound, making people wish they could die immediately. Tang Zheng's willpower was strong, but he was also a little absent-minded. His mind gradually lost control, and the speed at which he absorbed the blood essence became slower and slower. His cultivation had already increased a lot, but it was of no use. In front of him, the demon clan could already be seen from afar. He was very clear about what that black mass of people meant. Whiz! The flying speed of the war soul sword increased greatly, streaking across the sky, bringing with it a sound of breaking through the air, and then landed on the ground. Just at this time, a voice came from Saint King's mouth. "Where is Tang Zheng?" Tang Zheng's pupils constricted, his gaze was firmly attracted by Saint King. When he saw that tall and sturdy figure and powerful aura, he immediately realized that this person was an important figure in the demon clan. Caillou's evil plan succeeded, and really brought him back, causing him to fall into the wolf's den. Suddenly, a burst of intense pain attacked his mind again. He only felt that the sky and earth were spinning, and everything in front of him turned into nothingness. A voice came out of his mouth, but it was not him who spoke. Chapter 11:16. Under everyone's gaze, Tang Zheng's answer was like a clap of thunder, exploding in everyone's ears and attracting everyone's attention. Apex novel. The 100 Faces Star Lord suddenly turned around, his eyeballs almost popping out of their sockets. Tang Zheng, his voice was extremely long. Obviously, he was really shocked by this scene. The 100 Faces Star Lord gnashed his teeth in hatred when Tang Zheng retreated earlier. Now that the demon race had returned, he actually dared to return. Was he scared out of his wits? This scene was too inconceivable. Tang Zheng. The Saint King raised his thick eyebrows and stared at Tang Zheng suspiciously as he asked. The 100 Faces Star Lord's words were still fresh in everyone's mind. Tang Zheng was their enemy and had obstructed the demon race's return many times. Instantly, all eyes fell on Tang Zheng like the sharpest swords. Tang Zheng, or more accurately, Caillou, was indifferent and looked at everyone arrogantly like a general inspecting his soldiers. His eyes were sharp and his expression was arrogant. The 100 Faces Star Lord could not believe his eyes. Was this still Tang Zheng? Why did he feel so different? It was as if he was a different person. This was the first time the other demons had seen Tang Zheng. Looking at this scene, they believed the 100 Faces Star Lord's words. Although Tang Zheng's cultivation was not very high, his aura was enough to convince many people with higher cultivation. The Saint King's heart was also stirred up. Only an expert would understand the value of such an aura. Facing thousands of troops, being calm and talking cheerfully was the style of a general. However, compared to the person in front of him, such a person was still inferior. His demeanor was not something that could be faked casually. It was as if all the people in the world had to listen to his orders and were at his mercy. This was something that even a real expert could not have. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign naturally saw this as well, so his calm heart was stirred up by a storm. Why did Tang Zheng change so much in the blink of an eye? Could it be that he had been hiding his strength all along and was playing a game of cat and mouse with him? Chemph, what Tang Zheng? Are you all blind? Caillou reprimanded domineeringly. It's not Tang Zheng. Saint King turned his eyes to the 100 Faces Star Lord with a questioning look. His Tang Zheng. I broke one of my legs. How could I forget him? 100 Faces Star Sovereign shouted, but as soon as he finished speaking, he realized that something was wrong. His cultivation was higher than Tang Zheng's, but he still lost a leg. No matter who he told, it was not something to be proud of. On the contrary, it would make others look down on him. But what was said couldn't be taken back. His face was red as he looked at the others. Sure enough, he found that there was shock in the other's eyes, mixed with a trace of schadenfreude. The 100 Faces Star Lord was in a dilemma and almost suffered internal injuries. Saint King's focus was not on this. The 100 Faces Star Lord swore that this person was Tang Zheng, but he said that he was not Tang Zheng. What was going on? Who are you? Saint King asked sternly. I'm Kai Yu, the leader of the 9 Li tribe. This sentence was more powerful than 10,000 claps of thunder. It immediately made people's hearts tremble and their minds become dizzy. Kai Yu was a real powerhouse in ancient legends. He was the leader of the 9 Li tribe and the ancestor of the demon tribe. He was famous and everyone knew about him. But everyone knew that he died in the Battle of Zhualu with the Yellow Emperor. From then on, the 9 Li tribe fell apart and evolved into the demon tribe. How dare you pretend to be the ancestor of Kai Yu? You deserve death. I must tear you into pieces to appease the soul of Kai Yu in heaven. Kill him, kill him. The roars were filled with killing intent. They wanted nothing more than to tear the person in front of them into pieces. The 100 Faces Star Lord laughed disdainfully. He stared at Tang Zheng as if he was a madman and said, Tang Zheng, you're really amazing. You dare to pretend to be Kai Yu in front of the demon tribe. Don't you know what Kai Yu means to the demon tribe? Do you think that your life is too long and that you can't die quickly enough? Originally, he was worried that Tang Zheng would come back and have some tricks up his sleeve. But when he heard Tang Zheng say that he was Kai Yu, wasn't he seeking death? Suddenly, he looked like he was watching a good show. Maybe he even wanted to sit on a stool, cross his legs, and watch the show while eating melon seeds. In short, there was no need for him to do anything. The demon tribe would fight to avenge him. However, there was one person who had a different reaction. Saint King. He narrowed his eyes slightly, and the light that leaked out from the slits of his eyes was like a scanner, able to detect even the tiniest detail and identify any clues. Saint King asked, What evidence do you have to prove that you're Kai Yu's ancestor? Kai Yu snorted heavily and said proudly, Finally, there's someone who's not too stupid. I didn't expect that during my absence, each generation was worse than the last. You've all become someone who has eyes but can't see. You. The demon tribe was furious. He wanted to shout, but when he saw the look in Saint King's eyes, he immediately swallowed his disrespectful words. But the pairs of eyes were full of hostility. Obviously, they didn't really believe the other party's nonsense. 100 Faces mocked, Tang Zheng, don't pretend to be a ghost. You can't imagine what kind of person Kai Yu is. You can pretend to be anyone, but you pretended to be him. I've seen him before. Do you think you can fool my eyes? Kai Yu glanced at 100 Faces indifferently and said, 100 Faces, I didn't expect that after tens of thousands of years, you're still so stupid. Back then, when I broke Mount Buzhou, I only imprisoned you in Mount Buzhou. I was too kind to you. A guy like you who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth should have been killed long ago. If it wasn't for your father's great contributions, how could you live to this day? 100 Faces' expression changed when he heard this. Only the people involved knew this secret. With Tang Zheng's age and experience, how could he know what happened tens of thousands of years ago? 100 Faces stared at Tang Zheng as if he had seen a ghost and roared, Who are you? I've already told you, you fool. I'm Kai Yu. Impossible. Didn't the rumors say you were dead? Did you see me die with your own eyes? I didn't, 100 Faces said angrily. Before the Battle of Zhualu, he had been imprisoned in Mount Buzhou. Of course, he didn't see Kai Yu die in battle with his own eyes. However, ever since he escaped, he spent a lot of effort studying the history of ancient times. The Yellow Emperor and Kai Yu were no longer in this world. Everyone from that era had long died, except for him. At this moment, he suddenly saw Kai Yu appear. It was obvious how he felt. I, Kai Yu, fought against the heavens and earth. How could I die so easily? Back then, I'll repay the Yellow Emperor and his descendants 100 times for what he did to me and the 9 Li tribe. Who were the descendants of the 9 Li tribe? Who were the descendants of the Yellow Emperor? In the Battle of Zhualu, the Yellow Emperor unified the world. The Yellow Emperor's tribe expanded without restraint and occupied the vast central plains. In the end, they became the people of the world. In other words, all the people of Huashia were the descendants of the Yellow Emperor. Kaiyu couldn't take revenge on the Yellow Emperor, so he could only take revenge on the descendants of the Yellow Emperor. That was to take revenge on all the people of Huashia. This was a huge blow to him. But who was Kaiyu? He was an ambitious and ruthless person who kept his word. Since he said so, it meant that he thought so. Naturally, he would do so. In the end, the people who suffered would be the people of the world. However, no one present felt that there was anything wrong with his words. Instead, they became restless and eager to give it a try. Apart from taking over the world, wasn't the return of the demons for revenge? It was just to expand the target of revenge. Killing a few more people was a common occurrence for the demons. They wouldn't even bat an eyelid. Kaiyu's aura was so imposing that no one dared to look straight at him. The 100 Faces Star-Lord couldn't help but believe his words. This was because he gradually recalled that Kaiyu had such a spirit back then. Was he really Kaiyu? Why? Wasn't he Tang Zheng? How could these two be the same person? Saint King's eyes flickered with a hint of surprise. If the other party was really Kaiyu, it would definitely be good news for the demons. However, his understanding of Kaiyu was only passed down from generation to generation. It wasn't detailed, so he subconsciously looked at the 100 Faces Star-Lord. Among everyone, only the 100 Faces Star-Lord had seen Kaiyu before. Therefore, he had the most right to speak. Seeing that the 100 Faces Star-Lord was silent, Saint King's heart moved. He already understood a little. However, this was a serious matter. He didn't rush to express his opinion. Instead, he probed, "May I ask what evidence do you have to prove your identity?" Kaiyu waved his hand impatiently and said, "I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Quickly set up the Jolie Soul Transfer Formation and help me." Jolie Soul Transfer Formation? Many people were baffled and confused. However, Saint King's eyelids twitched. He exclaimed, "How do you know about the Jolie Soul Transfer Formation?" This was a secret of the Jolie tribe. It was impossible for outsiders to know about it. Moreover, even among the demons, only a few people in the upper echelons of the demons knew about it. It was said that this was a formation invented by Kaiyu. However, the use of this formation had always been criticized. This was because, after many generations of research, the demons still couldn't understand the use of this formation. However, every leader of the demons would be required to learn this formation when they inherited it. They would also organize people to practice the formation until they were completely familiar with it. The demons passed it down from generation to generation. Until today, this had never changed. The Jolie Soul Transfer Formation was successfully passed down. Of course, there were people who questioned it. They felt that practicing this formation was useless. Why bother? However, it was said that this was instructed by Kaiyu. Out of respect and remembrance for Kaiyu, no one dared to disrespect this formation and let it stop being passed down. What is the Jolie Soul Transfer Formation? The 100 Faces Star-Lord had never heard of this formation. He was also shocked. When Kaiyu saw the sage's reaction, he secretly let out a sigh of relief. In the end, these unfilial descendants weren't too stupid. They didn't let the inheritance of this set of array be severed. Otherwise, it would certainly spoil his great plan of 10,000 years. Chapter 11:17. What was the Jolie Soul Transfer Formation? Many demons had the same question as the 100 Faces Star-Lord. They all looked at Saint King. The pinnacle of novels. Saint King's expression became very serious. It was as if his face was covered with a layer of frost. He asked, "Are you really Ancestor Kaiyu?" Kaiyu said coldly, "It seems that not all of you are stupid. Since you know about the Jolie Soul Transfer Formation, you must know that other than me, the one who created it, no one else knows what it is used for." Saint King was silent. That was indeed the case. Anyway, according to Saint King's knowledge, no one knew the use of the Jolie Soul Transfer Formation in all these years. Caillou wanted to persuade the demons as soon as possible. He continued, I created the Jolie soul transfer formation in the past for today's use. If you continue to dawdle and delay my important matter, you will not be able to redeem yourself even if you die 100 times. These words were very serious. Saint King's expression became more serious. He stared at Caillou as if he wanted to distinguish the real from the fake. But with his insight, how could he see through Caillou's real situation? However, he had to admit that whether it was his aura, words, or the secret of the Jolie soul transfer formation, it was very convincing. He was the real Caillou. Jolie soul transfer formation, quickly set up the formation. Caillou finally could not stand the demons dawdling and shouted. Although he looked aggressive, he was actually cowardly at heart. He was in imminent danger. In Caillou's heart, he temporarily had the upper hand and temporarily seized control of Tang Zheng's body. But this was not sustainable. Because, relying on his own strength, he could not kill Tang Zheng and destroy his soul. Moreover, there was also the inner demons, which made him even more helpless. Although he could temporarily suppress the inner demons, if he really wanted to imprison him, he had to rely on external forces. That was the Jolie soul transfer formation. In the ancient era, when Caillou created the Jolie soul transfer formation, it was to ensure that nothing would go wrong. On the verge of death, he purposely used all of his power to seal a strand of his divine soul into Caillou's heart. Caillou's heart was sealed in the prehistoric heavenly tomb, waiting for the fated person. As long as someone obtained the heart of Caillou, he would be able to possess another body and be reborn. However, things didn't go as planned. Caillou hadn't expected that a new celestial would obtain Caillou's heart. Celestials were not ordinary people. In order to ensure that nothing went wrong, he had to lie low and wait for the right time to possess this body. Although many things had happened afterward, the inner demons were still very confident in their possession because they had the Jolie soul transfer formation as a backup plan. This formation was a soul transfer formation, a sharp weapon for possession. When the formation was activated, he would circulate his mental cultivation method, and with the cooperation of the inside and outside, he would be able to completely take over Tang Zheng's body and devour Tang Zheng's divine soul. Seeing Caillou so anxious, Saint King finally made up his mind and roared, "Form the formation. Su su su." A few people jumped out from the crowd, forming hand seals with their hands as they walked along a certain path. These people were all well-known figures in the demon race, absolute experts. They were one of the few people who had been taught the Jolie soul transfer formation. With Saint King's order, they displayed the divine abilities that had long been immersed in their bones and quickly formed the formation. Everyone felt their minds ripple, as if their souls were about to be separated from their bodies. Immediately, many people's faces turned pale, and they panicked. Seeing that, Saint King roared, "Quickly retreat." In an instant, the demon clan retreated and avoided the range of the Jolie soul transfer formation. Caillou flashed and stood in the center of the Jolie soul transfer formation. His hands moved and formed hand seals, and a wave spread rapidly in all directions from his palms. Even those who were standing far away felt their minds ripple. 100 Change Star Lord felt it the most clearly. This formation seemed to be difficult for even him to resist. He could not imagine who could resist the attack of this formation. At the same time, he also vaguely guessed something. He muttered to himself, Tang Zheng was probably possessed by Caillou, and this Jolie soul transfer formation is probably used to further help Caillou in his possession. After understanding this point, the 100 Change Star Monarch's expression became very unsightly. He had always vowed to lead the devil race, but the appearance of the Saint Monarch had destroyed this hope of his. Now that Caillou was reborn, he was even more hopeless. He was not even qualified to stand aside. His eyes flickered, and he thought to himself, if I destroy it now, will all their previous efforts be in vain? At that time, he might still have a chance of survival. However, when he saw Saint King, he had to give up this idea. Saint King's cultivation was higher than his. Moreover, he was injured and was not a match for Saint King. How could he destroy Caillou's plan? The sage didn't care about the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign's thoughts. He was also a member of the formation. When he saw Caillou skillfully controlling the formation, he understood that what the other party said was true. It was really ancestor Caillou. Suddenly, he became excited, and his blood seemed to be boiling. The legend of Caillou had been passed down for generations among the demon clan. Everyone knew about him, and he was the idol of many demon clan members. One must know that the Jolie tribe was very powerful and rare. They were a powerful tribe that could fight against the Yellow Emperor. However, ever since Caillou was defeated, the Jolie tribe fell apart. After they evolved into the demon clan, they became the target of scorn. Everyone wanted to beat them up, not to mention fighting for the world. In every dynasty, the royal family would use the righteous faction. Many dynasties were even supported by the righteous faction. Although the demon clan did not give up and planned many wars, and even caused chaos in the royal court, causing chaos in the world and changing dynasties, they wanted to benefit from it. However, every time they fought, the establishment of a new dynasty was the success of the forces supported by the righteous faction. Although the forces supported by the demon clan were very powerful and took the initiative, they were short-lived in the end. The repeated failures caused the demon clan to suffer heavy losses. They lost face and their morale was low. Every demon race clansman thought of this and couldn't help but grit their teeth in hatred. The demon clan wanted to make a complete counterattack. After this return, they would be the only ones left in the world. There would be no righteous faction. Then they could successfully control the world and wash away their shame. Moreover, even if the righteous faction returned, they would not be afraid. Because, with the reborn Caillou, the righteous faction would be like chickens and dogs. They would not be able to withstand a single blow and would be defeated in a single blow. Perhaps, they still wanted to have a direct confrontation with the righteous faction and defeat them fair and square. Only then would they be able to wash away their shame and allow the demon clan to rise. These thoughts flashed through his mind. Saint King guarded his mind and focused on operating the formation. He looked at Caillou with burning eyes. Caillou's mouth gradually curved into a smile. The Jolie soul-shifting formation was indeed extraordinary. His decision back then was really too wise. He had learned from the mistakes of others. Chapter 11:18. In Caillou's heart, the inner demons took the lead and shouted, "Caillou, what are you doing?" They had already been sealed in Caillou's heart and did not know what was happening in the outside world. Naturally, they did not know that the Jolie soul transfer array had quietly been activated. Pinnacle novel. Tang Zheng frowned as he stared at Caillou. Caillou laughed sinisterly. "Do you really think I am helpless? I, Caillou, will never fight a battle that I am not confident in. Since I dare to act, I naturally have a plan. What the hell is going on with you?" Tang Zheng did not care about the pain of his injuries and asked. He had already lost control of his body and did not know what was happening in the outside world. However, he knew that the situation outside was not optimistic. Based on the speed of the war soul sword, he had already returned to the land. He was afraid that he was surrounded by demons. Caillou's thoughts could not be clearer. He wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to gather his former subordinates. If he really succeeded, the strength of the demon clan would increase greatly and there would be endless disasters. This world would really be hopeless. As for the end of the world that Yang Qingyi predicted, it might really come true. In the scene of her prophecy, she saw Tang Zheng. Could it be that at that time, it was no longer Tang Zheng, but the big Caillou who had occupied his body? Tang Zheng was shocked by his own guess and did not dare to let his imagination run wild. He only hoped that there was a way to get out of this predicament and regain control of his body. However, the situation in front of him was not ideal. This sudden appearance of power caused him and the inner demons to tremble from the depths of their souls, as if they could be destroyed by this power at any time. Caillou enjoyed this feeling very much. He looked at the two of them playfully and said, "There's no harm in telling you. This is the Jolie soul transfer array that I specially prepared for you. I have been preparing it for tens of thousands of years. Today, it has finally come in handy." Jolie soul transfer array? What's the use of it? Of course it's to destroy your souls and divine sense, leaving me as the owner of this body. Caillou raised his head and said proudly, "You think you can occupy it just because you say so? What do you take us for?" The inner demon was furious. Tang Zheng retorted with a livid expression, "Caillou, even if I die, I will never let you off easily." With that, he tipped his toes and rushed up again. Although he had lost both of his arms, he had not completely lost his offensive capabilities. His speed was extremely fast, like a bullet. With a whoosh, he arrived in front of Caillou. "Freeze." Caillou lightly glanced at Tang Zheng. He pointed his finger at the void and roared loudly. Tang Zheng found that he had lost the ability to move. It was as if he had been immobilized. He was unable to move and was suspended in front of Caillou. Tang Zheng's eyes turned as he looked at this scene in disbelief. He tried to regain his freedom, but he found that there was no way. A mysterious and invisible power had firmly imprisoned him and lifted him up. This is the power of the Ju Li Soul Transfer Array. You have finally experienced it. You should be able to die in peace, Caillou said with killing intent, his eyes flashing. In the next second, Tang Zheng felt as if that mysterious power was about to tear him apart. The intense pain caused his face to look extremely sinister. "No." Tang Zheng hysterically resisted. However, all of this was pale and powerless. It had no effect at all. Pu. His legs were torn apart. His broken legs were torn apart by that mysterious power and disappeared without a trace. Tang Zheng screamed. That pain had almost completely destroyed his nerves. But in the end, he clenched his teeth and endured. That was because when he saw the sinister smile on Caillou's face, he was unwilling to die like this. As expected of a celestial. Even if your cultivation base is weak, your willpower is definitely not something an ordinary person can compare to. Caillou praised, but he didn't take it to heart. That was because he had absolute confidence. When the inner demons saw this scene, they were truly terrified. They wanted to turn and run, but they found that this was Caillou's heart. There was no way they could escape. Caillou saw through the inner demon's intentions. He disdainfully sneered, "Inner demons, you want to run? Didn't you always want to fight me? Back then, I didn't kill you, leaving behind a scourge like you. All of my plans were almost ruined by your hands." Caillou's hatred for the inner demons grew with each passing day. It had long since accumulated to a point where it could explode. It was just that in the past, he had always endured it. Now that it had completely erupted, he naturally wouldn't let the inner demons off. "You have nowhere to run. Come back." Caillou grabbed at the inner demons. Although there was a distance between them, that mysterious power immediately enveloped the inner demons. The inner demons didn't immediately become immobile like Tang Zheng. They fiercely struggled, trying to break free from the shackles of this power. But even after struggling for a long time, they still couldn't break free. "Caillou, let go of me," the inner demons unwillingly roared. "Noisy. I've long since grown tired of listening to you." Caillou angrily shouted and clenched his hand. Pa. The inner demon's body was like firecrackers, continuously ringing out. The inner demons immediately forgot to berate him and let out heart-wrenching screams. The screams seemed to be able to tear through space. However, the inner demons didn't lose an arm or a leg like Tang Zheng. His divine sense was much stronger than Tang Zheng's. Even the Ju Li soul transfer formation couldn't completely scatter his soul. This was because the inner demons were an anomaly. Back then, Caillou also didn't expect to meet the inner demons. Naturally, he didn't foresee this situation. However, by relying on the power of the formation, Caillou could still easily imprison him. He wouldn't be able to resist for eternity. That wasn't much different from directly killing him. There was still plenty of time in the future. Instead, he could torture him, which was even crueler than directly killing him. "Stop." The inner demons finally recovered and roared loudly. Caillou was unmoved and said, "Stop dreaming. Do you think I'll stop? You can slowly enjoy the feast I've prepared for you." As soon as he finished speaking, a bright light lit up on the inner demon's body. This light grew brighter and brighter until it was like sunlight. It was so dazzling that it was difficult to open one's eyes. These lights intertwined with each other and eventually formed a cage. The light dissipated and the inner demons opened their eyes. They suddenly discovered that they were actually locked in this cage. This cage didn't have a door. It was a dead end. It was obvious that Caillou didn't want to let them out at all. Caillou proudly glanced at the inner demons and said, "This way, you won't be able to make any waves. Unless I take the initiative to open this cage, you'll never see the light of day again." The inner demons struggled to resist the pain in his body while looking at the cage in despair. He clenched his fists and said through gritted teeth, "Caillou, you're too ruthless." "Haha, when have I ever been merciful?" Caillou retorted. The inner demons stared blankly. This was indeed the case. Caillou was an ambitious and ruthless person who had killed countless people. When had he ever been merciful? Moreover, the inner demons were his enemies. Normally, the inner demons had made sarcastic remarks to him who knew how many times. They were always at odds with him. Tang Zheng looked on helplessly at this scene. He was only left with half of his body, but this was his divine sense. His soul didn't scatter just because he didn't have 4 limbs. However, his heart was sad. He already understood that there was no way to reverse the situation and that there was no escape. If he had known this would happen, he would have fought to the death with Caillou in the future. At that time, without the help of the Jiuli soul transfer formation, the result might have been very different. However, regret couldn't change anything. Therefore, Tang Zheng looked on helplessly as Caillou walked in front of him. He could only stare at him, but it didn't have much killing power. Tang Zheng, speaking of which, I really didn't think that things would come to this point so quickly. I have to say, I have to thank the 100 Faces Star Lord. If it wasn't for this idiot's stubbornness, I might have to wait for a more suitable time. You might also be able to live a little longer. However, there are no IFS in this world. Now that things have come to this, there's no turning back. I can't let you go. The only way is to kill you and scatter your soul. Only then can I truly take over this body. Although Caillou now had control of the body, if he didn't completely destroy Tang Zheng's divine sense, it wouldn't last long. Therefore, no matter what, he couldn't just imprison him like the inner demons. Tang Zheng understood his situation and said unwillingly, "Caillou, the winner takes all. No matter what I say, it won't change the result. Before I die, I only want to ask you one thing. Just treat it as the price you pay for taking over my body. What do you think?" Seeing that Tang Zheng had given up his futile struggle, Caillou didn't rush to make a move. He pondered for a while and nodded, "Say it. Don't hurt my family and friends." These people were the only ones that Tang Zheng couldn't let go. He could die, but he didn't want these people to be implicated because of him. If that happened, he wouldn't be able to die in peace. Caillou showed a look of disdain and laughed wildly. "Tang Zheng, I thought you would ask for other conditions. Maybe I would agree to it because I was soft-hearted, but you recklessly asked for this. Do you think I will agree to it?" Tang Zheng's expression changed greatly and asked, "Don't tell me you won't even let them go? During the time I was in your body, I understood one thing, and that is that the people around you, although many of their cultivations are not very high, they all have one thing in common, and that is their unswerving loyalty to you. If they knew that you died in my hands, how could they let go of this hatred and live peacefully with me?" Caillou asked. Tang Zheng's eyes darkened. He understood that Caillou was telling the truth, but at the same time, Caillou didn't even let these people go. Tang Zheng flew into a rage and roared, "Caillou, why are you so ruthless? They can't threaten you at all." "Haha, they can't threaten me for the time being, but that doesn't mean they can't threaten me in the future. I don't like to leave behind future troubles. But you did remind me of one thing. Once I succeed in taking over your body, your family and friends won't know that the owner of this body is no longer Tang Zheng. They will deliberately think that I am you. Hihi, maybe it's not impossible to not kill them for the time being. Besides, you have a few beauties around you." Chapter 11:19. In the face of Tang Zheng's roar, Caillou was incomparably excited. He said coldly, "Don't worry, I'll have them accompany you very soon." So go to hell. With a grab of the big hand, Tang Zheng found that his brain was firmly grasped by a force. It was incomparably painful, and his brain was about to explode. Ah! He screamed again, but it was no use. His eyes were wide open, as if they were about to explode. When the inner demons saw this scene, they were powerless. Despair appeared in their eyes. In the end, they directly turned their heads away, unable to bear to watch this scene. Because their fate had fallen into a hopeless situation because of this. Tang Zheng felt that he was really going to die. There was no turning back. His brain was about to explode, and a crack appeared on his glabella. Suddenly, a golden light rushed out from this crack, dyeing the surroundings golden yellow. A majestic force soared into the sky. Caillou cried out in alarm and roared, "What's going on?" The inner demons hurriedly turned their heads, just in time to see this scene. They saw the golden light enveloping Tang Zheng's body, and the pain on his face actually weakened bit by bit. Dragon's might! The inner demons cried out in alarm. A glimmer of hope appeared in Tang Zheng's despairing heart. He felt his whole body relax. The golden light was actually gushing out from the dragon seal. Within the dragon seal, the golden dragon was vivid and lifelike. It shook its head and wagged its tail. With a dragon's roar, it rushed out of the dragon seal and swam around Tang Zheng's body. Immediately, Tang Zheng was enveloped in an intense golden light, exuding a mysterious aura. Seeing this scene, Caillou cried out, "What's going on?" Of course, he knew that Tang Zheng had the dragon seal, but he didn't think that the dragon seal would be of any use. In the end, he had great confidence in his Jolie soul transfer formation. However, when he discovered this scene, he was a little at a loss. His eyes flashed with a complicated expression as he stared at Tang Zheng. He grabbed with his hand, but the power of the array was unable to deal with Tang Zheng. On the other hand, Tang Zheng's arms and legs grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. Caillou's eyes widened as he realized that something was wrong. However, he could only watch all of this happen helplessly. Just like Tang Zheng before, he was completely powerless to resist the power of the formation. The eyes of the inner demons lit up, and a smile gradually appeared on his face as he laughed maniacally. "Haha, Caillou, didn't you boast about your success? What about now? This young man is indeed extraordinary. The dragon god arts that he cultivates, even you didn't have the chance to cultivate it back then. Since ancient times, dragons had always been very mysterious. Even the ancient times were no exception." Of course, Caillou was not as lucky as Tang Zheng to be able to cultivate the dragon god technique. As for the mysteries and wonders of the dragon god technique, he knew nothing about it. You want to turn defeat into victory? Dream on. Caillou roared with indignation. His body flashed, and he attacked Tang Zheng with both of his fists. The terrifying power of his attacks caused the air to tremble. However, Tang Zheng did not move at all. He saw the two fists, but he was now entangled by the golden dragon and could not move at all. He could only watch as the fists grew bigger and bigger and came crashing down on his head. Roar. With a dragon roar, the golden dragon opened its mouth towards Caillou. A beam of golden light shot out of the dragon's mouth and blocked the two huge fists. Caillou's expression changed drastically, and he could not move forward anymore. A layer of golden light gradually appeared in Tang Zheng's eyes, and his arms and legs grew back. Suddenly, he found that he could move again. He threw a punch, and the golden dragon entwined around his arm. The dragon head and the fist merged into one, and a sword projection flashed, colliding with Caillou's fist. Boom! With a loud noise, Caillou staggered back and fell to the ground. The golden light on Tang Zheng's body gradually dissipated, and he returned to his original appearance. However, the golden dragon spat out a golden dragon pearl from its mouth. The golden light flickered, and a golden line was drawn out from the dragon pearl like a silk cocoon. It flew lightly to the top of Tang Zheng's head, and slowly extended into the top of his head. In an instant, Tang Zheng seemed to have become transparent, and the golden line in his body could be seen clearly. At the same time, the 9th meridian in Tang Zheng's yuanying was completely formed. His cultivation improved by leaps and bounds, and he instantly reached the 9th stage of the yuanying realm. The continuous absorption of Kaiyu's blood was completely integrated into his yuanying. His cultivation improved again, and he reached the first stage of the divine transformation realm. Pa, pa, pa. A series of strange sounds came from his body, and at the same time, Tang Zheng slowly regained control of his body. Kaiyu noticed this and screamed in shock. How could this be? The Jiuli soul-shifting formation had also failed. This was a trap that he had carefully prepared for tens of thousands of years, but it was broken by Tang Zheng so easily. Kaiyu realized what kind of situation was waiting for him. His heartstrings trembled, and he actually felt a trace of fear. He could actually feel fear. Not many people would believe him if he told them. But at this moment, he truly experienced this feeling. Tang Zheng regained control of his body, and when he looked around, he was shocked. He had indeed returned to the demon race, and there were demons all around him. What should he do? However, he did not have time to pay attention to the other demons for the time being, because the battle in Kaiyu's heart was not over yet. Kaiyu resisted again, and fiercely attacked Tang Zheng. Break! Tang Zheng growled and punched out again. The entire space trembled violently, as if it was about to be shattered by this punch. Bam! Crack! The two fists collided, and Kaiyu's arm was twisted and broken at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, Kaiyu flew back like a kite with a broken string. Tang Zheng did not give him a chance to breathe. This time, he was determined to completely destroy Kaiyu. Kaiyu was also aware of this. While still in midair, he reacted and used the last bit of his power to mobilize the last bit of power of the Jiuli soul-shifting formation. Soul-shifting formation. Kaiyu roared. Bam, bam, bam. A series of explosions sounded, and the members of the Jiuli soul-shifting formation exploded one after another, turning into pools of blood. Except for Saint King, who luckily escaped, no one else survived. This unforeseen event really frightened many people. The people of Demon Race looked as if they had seen a ghost. They looked at this scene in disbelief, and many people screamed at the top of their lungs. Saint King's face suddenly changed, and he asked, "What's going on?" These people who died were the elites of the Demon Race, and in an instant, they had inexplicably exploded and died. The blow to him was self-evident. Saint King stared at Tang Zheng, hoping that he would give him an answer. But Tang Zheng was no longer Kaiyu. How could he give him an answer? He did not even look at him. Looking at this scene, 100 Faces' heart skipped a beat. If Kaiyu returned, he would definitely not be able to gain any benefits. It was better to take this opportunity to escape, and wait until he recovered from his injuries before deciding what to do next. With that thought in mind, 100 Faces' Star Sovereign retreated to the back of the crowd without leaving a trace. Seeing that the other people's attention was firmly attracted to the big formation, he quickly disappeared like there was oil under the soles of his feet. No one noticed the 100 Change Starlord because they were truly frightened by this sudden turn of events. Seeing that Tang Zheng did not answer his question, Saint King's heart skipped a beat. He had an ominous premonition that something had happened. "Ancestor Kaiyu, what's going on?" Saint King asked unwillingly. Tang Zheng's attention was completely attracted by the matter in Kaiyu's heart, and did not pay attention to Saint King. In Kaiyu's heart, when Kaiyu shouted that sentence, his whole body was suffused with a mysterious light, and then gradually became faintly discernible, like a cloud of fog. "Young man, quickly stop him, his soul is out of his body, and he wants to leave your body." The inner demons were experienced and knowledgeable, and immediately saw through Kaiyu's thoughts. Tang Zheng nodded fiercely, tipped his toes, and rushed toward Kaiyu, shouting, "Stop!" Kaiyu glared at Tang Zheng fiercely, and hysterically roared, "Tang Zheng, I won't let this go, you wait for me." Just as Tang Zheng's fist was in front of Kaiyu, Kaiyu completely faded, and disappeared without a trace. "Sigh," he succeeded, "his soul is out of his body, truly leaving your body." The inner demons sighed regretfully. Tang Zheng's attention shifted to the outside world, and saw a green gas rising from the top of his head, flying into the air. "Soul out of body." The sage immediately cried out in alarm as he recognized this scene. "I'm Kaiyu's soul, quickly help me." A voice appeared out of nowhere, giving everyone a fright. Saint King had a flash of inspiration, and understood what was going on. He took out a treasure box, and hurriedly said, "Ancestor Caillou, quickly come in." The treasure box lit up with a ray of light, and the green gas was sucked into it. Tang Zheng saw this scene, but he did not have time to stop it, because all of this happened too quickly. Caillou didn't die. Tang Zheng fiercely clenched his teeth, and stared at the treasure box, wishing he could immediately rush over and snatch it back. "Kill this brat." Caillou's voice came from the treasure box. He was only a strand of soul, and could not take the initiative to attack people, so he could only give orders to the other demons. Saint King also understood. Previously, Ancestor Caillou must have occupied this body, but later on, for some reason, Ancestor Caillou's soul was out of body, and he was expelled. Saint King's gaze towards Tang Zheng also changed. To be able to expel Caillou from his body, perhaps even he himself was unable to do this. This brat's cultivation did not seem high, it was truly strange. Could it be that celestials were all so extraordinary? Saint King could not understand Tang Zheng, but since Caillou had given the order, he could only carry it out. Thus, he hurriedly ordered his subordinates, "Kill him." Some of the demons did not react. Weren't they so respectful to this person just a moment ago? Why did they want to kill him now? These doubts flashed through their minds, but the demons still attacked Tang Zheng. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.